In the heat of a losing battle, a soldier despaired that the kingdom was about to fall. An enemy commander on horseback laughed cruelly, telling the retreating soldiers to cry out in pain as his army roared, certain of their victory. Suddenly, a massive shockwave blasted through the battlefield, sending soldiers flying. The men screamed in agony and terror, one of them recognizing the source of the devastation with a shudder. Amidst the chaos strode a single man, a giant of a warrior with silver hair. He was the war demon Ordal. He rallied his mercenary squad, shouting for them not to lose to the regular soldiers, and with a roar they charged into the fray. Later, the mercenaries celebrated their victory with mugs of ale. One of the women praised Captain Ordal for being too strong again, while another mentioned hearing he ran the entire show. They invited him for a drink, telling him not to mind the Lord Knight's displeasure, calling it a badge of honor. But Ordal, looking exhausted, gently turned them down. He told the ladies not to get too crazy and that he was going to sleep, admitting that messing with them wouldn't relieve his fatigue. That night, as torches flickered outside, Ordal slept soundly on a couch. He dreamt of the battlefield, his title War Demon Ordal echoing in his mind as cloaked figures crept into the room. He awoke to find himself surrounded by assassins, a sword pointed at his throat. They declared their intention to eliminate him. Ordal, surprisingly calm, simply asked what they meant. One of them impatiently told him they didn't have much time. Ordal chuckled, asking for what reason he was being eliminated, which was met with a sinister laugh. He reflected on his 5 years of war, how he'd planned to give everything to the kingdom as a mercenary, only for it to feel so empty now. The lead assassin informed him that his sword was at the blacksmith's and his men wouldn't be coming to help. Ordal finally understood the situation. He remarked on how well prepared they were for a single man, but questioned why proud knights would resort to an uncivilized attack. The assassin angrily called it a sacred cleansing, telling Ordal he was better off giving up. Ordal considered that fighting them wasn't impossible, but he had other plans. Sometime later, a cloaked Ordal walked through a town, overhearing rumors that the war demon had died in a fire. He figured the Black Sheep Knights spread the rumor, and he was grateful the public didn't know what he used to look like. Now, he wouldn't have to worry about being exposed. A ceasefire had been signed, ending the age of mercenaries, and he couldn't return to the capital as a man who was supposed to be dead. With no other options, he decided what to do next. He would return to his poor home village near the border, where no one would know his past. He planned to grow crops and live peacefully. It had been 5 years, and he wondered how his home had changed, feeling the emptiness on his back where his sword used to be. He walked through the forest, deciding against a horse carriage just in case. Suddenly, the howl of a wolf put him on high alert. His eyes widened as he sensed the danger. He saw a pack of wolves closing in on a small child. Without hesitation, he scooped up a stone and threw it with blinding speed. The rock struck a wolf with the force of a cannonball, killing it instantly. He dispatched the rest of the pack with similar ease, smirking as he flexed his hand. His spiritual martial arts, his stone-throwing skills, hadn't dulled one bit. This was a special technique that utilized the body's spirit to push it beyond its limits, granting incredible power. A surviving wolf stared at him, its eyes wide with shock and fear. It was a terrifying power. The remaining wolves whimpered and fled. Ordal noted it was a good call for wild animals. He looked at the carnage and hoped it hadn't traumatized the child, admitting to himself he may have gone a little overboard. He then noticed the little girl seemed fine. More surprisingly, she had the same rare, silver hair color as him. As he crouched down, still pondering the coincidence, the little girl looked up at him and quietly said his name. Then she leaped up, shouting "Papa," and threw her arms around him in a hug. Ordal was stunned, wondering how she knew his name and why she was calling him her father. The girl just beamed, saying she'd finally met him. Flustered, Ordal pushed her back, exclaiming that this was going too far for a joke, and demanding to know whose kid she was. An old man from the village approached, and Ordal asked if he knew the child. The man was just as confused, certain that this girl wasn't from their village as he knew everyone who lived there. Ordal wondered if she was lost from a nearby village, but the old man informed him the next town was a 2-day journey away. Inside a nearby house, the old man suggested Ordal put the girl down and ask her questions directly, chiding him for carrying her like a cat. Ordal sighed, thinking about how he was good at scaring enemies but terrible with kids. He decided to try to be as gentle as possible. His attempt at being gentle came out as a full-throated roar, demanding to know her name, where she was from, and whose kid she was. The other children in the room burst into tears, and the old man smacked him on the head. Ordal lamented that he really wasn't cut out for this. To his surprise, the little girl was completely unfazed. She cheerfully introduced herself as Maria, 5 years old. Ordal asked why she wasn't scared, and she explained that her mama said Papa's voice was really loud, so she was fine with it, confirming that he was her Papa Ordal. Maria added that his voice was gentle, and she liked how he looked too. Ordal was utterly bewildered, wondering if this was some parent-child instinct before telling himself to hold on. He asked her who her mama was, her name, and her location. Maria just tilted her head and said Mama is Mama. She explained that her mother was busy and went somewhere, so she left Maria in Papa's village. Ordal was baffled by the non-answer. The old man guessed that Maria didn't know her mother's name. Ordal conceded that it made a strange kind of sense for a mother in trouble to leave her child in the father's village. The old man then cheekily pointed out that Ordal was still a man who must have had relationships, teasing that the better the mercenary, the more women flocked to him. Ordal, annoyed, snapped back asking what that had to do with anything, insisting he didn't have a daughter. He then declared that none of the girls he'd been with had big bellies the next day. The old man sighed, exasperated, wondering if Ordal was ignorant or just didn't care. He asked if he even knew how babies were made. He then dropped a bombshell on the former war demon. He explained that children take 10 months and 10 days to grow in their mother's bellies. Ordal's face was a mask of pure shock, as if he'd just learned the world was round. Still reeling, Ordal argued there was no proof she was his kid, suggesting it could be a scam to get money. The old man simply pointed to her hair. He reminded Ordal that her silver hair was a very special color, the exact same as his, a color he'd never seen on anyone else. Ordal was flooded with memories of his own childhood as a wild orphan. He looked at Maria, so small and innocent, and thought that he couldn't let her end up like him. He scooped her into his arms, resolutely declaring he would take care of her. He couldn't just abandon a child who looked up to him as her father. The old man smiled in relief, saying he thought that's what Ordal would do. He told Ordal to come to him if he ever needed anything. As they left, Ordal gruffly told Maria her name was Maria, not you. She sweetly asked if she could hold her papa's hand. He grumbled for her to do what she wanted, but then softly told her, "Let's go, Maria." On the way to his home, Ordal explained that everyone in the village fends for themselves, and that she would have to work, too. Maria's eyes sparkled as she promised to work hard and help her papa. He pointed to his house in the distance. Maria squealed with delight, calling it a cool home, and leaped forward, making Ordal panic and shout that she was going to fall. Ordal recalled his past life, where his exceptional toughness and mastery of spiritual martial arts made him feared by all as the war demon Ordal. His career came to an abrupt end on the night of a ceasefire agreement, supposedly assassinated in a plot by a jealous king. But now, in a quiet village, the former war demon was facing a new kind of battle, raising a child. He sat with Maria at the table, gently wiping her mouth as she ate. He was slowly getting used to living with her, but it was a constant effort to keep her out of trouble. After finishing her meal, Maria enthusiastically offered to help clean up and immediately grabbed a heavy pot, causing Ordal to yell in panic that it was dangerous. It had taken him a few days just to get used to calling her by name, but they had settled in and had everything they needed. Feeling the small house was a bit dreary, he gave Maria a job for the day, to go pick some flowers to decorate the place, a task he figured would be safe and keep her occupied for a while. Maria beamed, promising to pick a ton of flowers and telling him to leave it to her. As Ordal prepared to head to the village chief's house, he reminded Maria to be home before dark. She gave him a bright, cheerful farewell, wishing her papa a good day. At the chief's house, the old man had a request for Ordal, to exterminate a pack of wolves that had appeared in the northern forest before someone got hurt. Ordal asked why he was being tasked with this, and the chief explained that the village's main hunter, Sam, had injured his foot. The chief reminded Ordal that even as a kid, he was skilled at dealing with beasts, making him the only one who could handle the job now. Ordal remembered his own childhood, how he practically lived in that forest and wouldn't have survived if he hadn't learned its ways. The wolves were smart, moving as a pack, and Ordal knew that after they finished off the livestock, they would start targeting villagers. The first victims would be the most vulnerable, the helpless children. The thought of Maria in danger solidified his resolve. He told the old man to leave it to him. The chief suggested he take some men, but Ordal, determined to protect Maria, refused any help. He said he would be fine alone, and just needed to borrow the chief's bow. As he left, he asked the chief to look after Maria if he was late, a grim possibility hanging in the air. He ventured into the woods, searching for the pack. He soon found them, a group larger than any he'd seen in this area before. He knocked an arrow, planning to use his spiritual martial arts to end things quickly so he could return home. The wolves spotted him as soon as he fired. He silently apologized, telling them it was just part of the job. As they closed in, he realized a bow was useless at this range, and instead grabbed a fallen log. With a mighty swing, he used the log as a massive club, sending the wolves flying. He gave the remaining wolves a chance to retreat, warning them he wouldn't hold back any longer, and that he didn't want to kill them senselessly. To his surprise, they held their ground, growling defiantly. They didn't even flinch at his killing intent, which told him these weren't ordinary wolves. Suddenly, a white wolf ambushed him from the trees above. Ordal sidestepped the attack, impressed by the surprise tactic. He identified his attacker as a rare white magic wolf. The creature proudly corrected him, stating it was one of the proud white magic wolves, not some inferior beast. Ordal was intrigued, questioning why a creature from the far northern mountains would be leading a pack so far south. He noted its small size and bluntly asked if it was an orphan or had been separated from its pack, which earned him a vicious snarl. The wolf lunged, screaming for the foolish human to die. Ordal easily dodged, remarking on its speed. With a single powerful strike, he took down the rest of the pack, ensuring they wouldn't threaten the village again. The white wolf lay on the ground, wounded but alive. Ordal was impressed it had survived, realizing it must have used magic to defend itself. He knew letting a top-ranking magic beast go was risky, as it might return for revenge. The wolf, meanwhile, flashed back to a brutal attack on its home, its mother sacrificing herself to save it. It awoke later to find itself bandaged and in a strange house. Ordal was there, explaining that he'd saved its life because of his personal rule against killing brats. The wolf indignantly declared it was not a brat, but a 2-year-old. Ordal, finding that distinction amusingly young, pressed for answers. He asked again why it was so far from home, leading a pack of normal wolves. The wolf explained it was seeking revenge against the black magic wolves that had destroyed its family. Its mother had dropped it in a river to escape, and it had been lost ever since, which led to their confrontation. Ordal understood now. It was a territorial war between the two wolf clans. He bluntly told the wolf it was crazy for thinking it could win against the black magic wolves, with a pack of ordinary ones. The wolf became angry, then slumped in defeat, admitting it knew it was too small and weak to win. Seeing the young wolf begin to cry, Ordal realized he'd been too harsh. He then offered a solution, asking if it wanted to become strong. The wolf's eyes lit up with renewed fire, as it declared it had to become strong to get its revenge. Seeing its determination, Ordal made a decision. He would train it. The wolf was shocked that a human would train a proud white magic wolf, but Ordal reminded it that it had lost to a human. Following the law of the wild means following power, he explained, declaring that the wolf was now his pupil. The wolf tilted its head, confused by the term. Ordal clarified it wasn't a pet, but more like family. The word struck a chord with the orphaned wolf, who resolved to accept this new family. Ordal named the wolf Fen, after the legendary wolf god Fenrir. He then told Fen about Maria and asked it to get along with her. More importantly, he asked Fen to protect Maria when he was away. Fen swore on its life as a proud white magic wolf that it would protect her. Just then, they heard Maria returning home. Ordal quickly instructed Fen to act like a normal dog and not to speak, so as not to frighten her. Maria entered and was delighted to see the new dog, happily introducing herself and calling it Fen Shan. Fen played its part perfectly, giving a happy woof. As Maria showed off the flowers she picked, Fen turned to Ordal with something urgent to communicate. After a moment, Fen managed to convey a critical piece of information. It was not a lad, but a girl. Ordal was momentarily stunned. He sighed, looking at Maria and Fen together. Good grief, he thought, now he had 2 daughters. Maria, riding on Fen's back, cheerfully announced that she was going on a mission with her papa. As Ordal headed to the village chiefs, he told Fen to take care of Maria. Fen gave a dutiful woof in response. Maria, in turn, told her father to be careful, to which he replied with an okay. Life in the village was settling into a routine. Ordal had told the villagers that Fen was a special dog he'd picked up, capable of telepathy, to explain their communication while hiding her true nature as a high-class magic beast. Fen seemed to be enjoying her role, playing happily with Maria and the other children. Ordal mused that despite her pride as a magic wolf, she was still young enough to enjoy playing. At the village chief's house, Ordal was helping with some calculations. The chief was impressed, noting that such math was something one would learn in the royal capital, not in their small village where it wasn't particularly necessary. Ordal explained it was something he taught himself during his mercenary days. The mention of formal education made him think about the village's lack of a school. The chief pointed out that while the increasing number of children was a good thing, it was creating a strain on their resources and workforce. On his way back, Ordal found Maria playing with Fen, both adorned with flower crowns. He asked if she had finished her job, but she was just stopping by. He playfully thought that she wasn't doing a very good job as a guard. Fen, however, seemed to think it couldn't be helped, as she was still just a young girl herself. Ordal watched Maria playing with her friends, who were initially scared of him, but had warmed up thanks to Maria insisting her papa wasn't scary. He asked them if they could write their names, and their blank stares confirmed his suspicions. Back at the chief's house, he learned that the literacy rate in the village was shockingly low. Even the adults couldn't write. The chief explained that with no school, and no real need for it in their daily lives, reading and writing were skills no one possessed. Ordal knew from his past how much people suffered from a lack of education. He was determined that Maria wouldn't face the same hardship. He decided he would have to do something about the state of education in the village, even if he didn't feel fit to be a teacher. As he and Fen walked through the woods, Fen picked up the scent of animals. They found a large herd of great cows, much larger than normal cattle. Fen assumed they would hunt them for meat, but Ordal had a better idea. They would capture the entire herd and bring them back to the village alive. Fen was confused, asking why they would go through the trouble of keeping wild cows when they could just eat them. Ordal explained the long-term benefits. Raising the cows would provide a steady supply of not just meat, but also milk and other dairy products, which would be more efficient and convenient for the village in the future. Fen finally understood the logic. Then a sudden thought made her nervous. She asked if Ordal was keeping her for the same reason, to eat her when she grew up. He immediately shot down the idea, telling her that wolf meat was difficult for humans to eat, and raising her for that purpose would be completely inefficient. Fen was visibly relieved. Ordal, eager to get started, told her that capturing the herd was simple. Their plan was complicated by the presence of a massive great bull, the aggressive male of the herd. Ordal calmly approached the charging beast, telling it that it was going to listen to him. In a display of overwhelming power, he swiftly subdued the bull. He told the defeated animal that while it might seem cruel, this world was about the survival of the fittest, and they would be well cared for in the village. Soon, the village was enjoying the benefits of their new livestock. Maria happily drank a glass of fresh milk, proclaiming she would grow up big and strong like her papa. Even Fen enjoyed a bowl, and Maria delightedly announced that Fen found it delicious too. The village thrived with the addition of the great cows. The villagers praised Ordal, not only for providing the cows, but also for crafting new farming tools and building a stable for them. The cows' strength allowed them to cultivate new land and plan for further expansion. Ordal reflected that the varied skills he'd learned as a mercenary were proving to be surprisingly useful in his new life. As Ordal watched Maria happily running off to see cheese being made, the village chief stood beside him, remarking on how much the devil child Ordal had grown up. The chief's words triggered a flood of memories for Ordal. He recalled a time of famine, the village being raided by bandits, who threatened to slaughter the men and sell the women and children. As a young boy, he had single-handedly fought them off, a whirlwind of fury and violence. After the battle, covered in blood, he was approached by a villager who thanked him for saving them. From that day on, the villagers, no longer afraid, had embraced him. They brought him food and celebrated his strength. He had wanted the village to do well, and when the future chief asked for his help, he had agreed. Looking back, the chief admitted he had been lonely when Ordal left, and happy upon his return. Ordal scoffed, saying the chief was just using him because he was convenient. He then offered to capture any other animals that might be suitable for domestication. The chief smiled, appreciating the gesture. Unbeknownst to them, a knight on horseback had arrived at the village, a masked woman who had tracked Ordal to his hometown and vowed not to let him get away. A villager rushed to Ordal and the chief, announcing that a knight of the kingdom was at the main gate. Ordal's mind raced. A kingdom knight? A pursuer? He couldn't think of anyone who would know his hometown. He told Maria and Fen to go on ahead to the house, trusting Fen to protect her. As he hurried toward the gate, he saw the knight trying to push past the villagers, insisting she had business at Ordal's house. He was shocked to see who it was. Why would such an important person come to this remote village alone? Realizing Maria was at home, he knew he had to stop the night before she reached his house. He quickly grabbed a festival mask from a nearby house to conceal his identity and intercepted her, telling her she could go no further. The knight, not recognizing him, called him a suspicious bastard. She introduced herself as Elizabeth Raymond, a knight of the kingdom, and demanded he move aside, stating she had business at the house where Ordal was born. Ordal, playing dumb, asked what a kingdom knight would need at Ordal's birth house. Elizabeth, growing impatient, warned him one last time to move, refusing to discuss her important objective with a stranger. Ordal was puzzled by her uncharacteristic rage. The Elizabeth he knew was a serious, level-headed knight who would never point her sword at an ordinary citizen. He tried to reason with her, claiming that according to village laws, he couldn't let her pass. He then dropped a bombshell, declaring he wasn't a complete stranger because Ordal was his cousin. Elizabeth was taken aback for a moment, noticing the family resemblance in his physique. But her determination quickly returned, and she gave him a final warning to move aside. Ordal sighed, realizing that brute strength was the only way to stop her. This was getting troublesome. He grabbed a nearby washing pole, remarking that it should be enough for a knight who had forgotten her manners. Enraged, Elizabeth lunged, screaming that she would kill him. Ordal easily parried her attacks, noting that at only 16, the sword princess was a talented knight and as quick to attack as ever. In a flash, he disarmed her, catching her blade just inches from his face. He then grabbed her arm, telling Elizabeth to cool her head, and tossed her into a nearby river. He figured a cold dip would calm her down and send her home. Soaking wet but undeterred, Elizabeth pointed at him from the water, correctly identifying him as Ordal and demanding he take off the mask and explain himself. He sighed, admitting she was right. Later, inside his house, Elizabeth explained how she knew he was alive. The body found in the burnt ruins of his supposed assassination was a fake, likely taken from a cemetery. She had suspected foul play and believed he was still alive. She reminded him of their first meeting 5 years ago, how he was the only person who had ever defeated her in a duel. That first loss had sparked a one-sided rivalry, with Elizabeth challenging him countless times, never discouraged by defeat. Based on her judgment of the war demon's strength, she had doubted the official story of his death. She had promised herself that she would one day defeat him, and she knew he would keep their promise. Ordal was confused about what promise she was referring to. She reminded him of a promise they made 2 years prior. If she won their duel, he would do anything she asked. She had been serious even at 14. She declared that when she finally defeated him, he would have to fulfill her wish of making him her bride. Changing the subject, Ordal asked how she found his village, certain he had never told anyone about it. Elizabeth explained that it was a long and arduous journey. After getting information about his hometown from them, she had meticulously searched through countless villages, driven by woman's intuition and the power of love. Ordal was pleased to hear his old comrades were doing well. After getting information about his hometown from them, she had meticulously searched through countless villages, driven by woman's intuition and the power of love. Just then, Elizabeth noticed a small girl peeking at them from the doorway. Ordal called Maria over to greet their guest. Maria introduced herself cheerfully. Elizabeth, charmed, introduced herself and noted Maria's silver hair and the fact that she called Ordal Papa. Maria proudly confirmed, Papa Ordal. The revelation was too much for Elizabeth. She fainted on the spot. When she came to, Ordal was trying to explain the situation, stating that while the chance of Maria being his kid was high, he wasn't married and didn't have a wife. Elizabeth, upon hearing he was still single, immediately perked up, declaring that everything was fine then. She then revealed she had run away from home, abandoning her rank and family, all to find him. Ordal, realizing she was now jobless and homeless, lamented that all her studies in political science had led to this. Then an idea struck him. Since she was educated as a leader, he had a proposal. He offered her a job as a teacher for the village children, seeing as she had nowhere else to go. Elizabeth was ecstatic at the prospect of living in the same house as him. Ordal was pleased with his solution. He'd found a teacher for the village and could keep an eye on Elizabeth, preventing his location from being leaked. 2 birds, 1 stone. Elizabeth quickly adapted to village life, proving to be an amazing teacher and a strong worker, impressing the villagers. During a break from clearing land, she asked Ordal if a hard worker like her would make a good wife. He agreed that she would, but then cheekily added that a normal village wife couldn't fell a massive tree with a single blow. Their lunch was interrupted by Maria, who proudly presented the bento boxes she had made. Both Ordal and Elizabeth were impressed by the splendid meal. Maria beamed, saying she worked hard on it. Ordal praised her, thinking she might be a bento-making genius. Fen, ever the gourmand, urged them to eat quickly. During their picnic, Elizabeth wiped some ketchup from Maria's face, and they talked about her studies. Maria was enjoying her classes and had a good memory, just as Elizabeth expected. Ordal reminded her that playing and making friends were just as important as studying. The peaceful lunch was suddenly disrupted when Fen snatched Elizabeth's sandwich and ran off, with a laughing Elizabeth and a frantic Maria in hot pursuit. As they chased after the mischievous wolf, a panicked villager ran up to them, shouting that bandits were attacking the village. The villagers' news of bandits on the road to the neighboring village caused concern. Elizabeth noted that while their village was mostly self-sufficient, a disruption in trade would still cause problems. Ordal's mind, however, was on something far more critical, the specialty honey from the neighboring village that Maria loved. He knew she was looking forward to getting some. This was a serious problem. He immediately volunteered to take the villager's place and retrieve the packages, assuring everyone he would be back quickly. He told Maria he was going to get the honey, and she was overjoyed. Elizabeth was to stay behind and teach, while Fen insisted on coming along. Ordal agreed, thinking it would be good battle practice for her. Elizabeth wished them both to be careful. On the road, Fen led the way. Ordal, running behind, urged her to go faster. Fen, panting, complained that Ordal was too fast for a human, even with him using spiritual martial arts to boost his speed. He asked what she concentrated on when she ran, and she replied that it was her feet. He corrected her, explaining that she was still young and not using her whole body efficiently. He told her to use her entire body, to gather all her force when she runs. He instructed her to imagine herself as the wind, flying over the plains. Fen took his advice to heart and in a burst of speed shot forward, leaving Ordal in the dust. He was surprised she got it in one go, attributing it to her natural talent. They soon arrived at a magnificent, sprawling building. They soon arrived at the bandits' hideout. A villager they had captured was about to be killed. Ordal overheard their vile plans to slaughter the men and sell the women and children. Realizing they were a heinous group, he knew he couldn't hold back. Ordal smiles, encouraging her to just have fun with it as she always does. She beams back, saying she will, then took on the rest of the group as they charged him. Fen, watching from the sidelines, wondered if she should join the fight. A few days later, Ordal gathered the men of the village. He announced the formation of a vigilante corps to protect them from future threats. The men were hesitant, many having never held a weapon before, but they were determined to protect their families. Elizabeth expressed her concern, but Ordal reassured her, saying it was their own decision. He then revealed a stash of crossbows he had prepared. Unlike the academy in Ruda, these upper-level institutions focus solely on the pursuit of knowledge, with almost no school events. He gave simple instructions: aim, and pull the trigger. The bolt flew true, piercing a metal plate with surprising force. The villagers were amazed. Ordal explained that the crossbow was a simple but powerful mechanical bow, easy for even beginners to use. He then gave them a stern lecture, reminding them that while they now had the means to fight, weapons were tools for harming people. Their use, he said, depended entirely on the user's intent. They could be used to protect what was valuable to them. He called forward only those who were prepared to put their lives on the line for the village. He was pleased with the determined looks on their faces. To test their resolve, he instructed them to link hands. He then sent a jolt of energy through them, a painful but temporary test of their will. He told them to relax, that the pain would soon subside. As a final test, he had one of them try to stab a target with a spear. The man was shocked at how light the spear felt, realizing the power that had been dormant within him. Ordal had used his spiritual arts to awaken their potential. With their prep complete, the real training began, and he warned them he would be strict. The men responded with a resounding yes, eager to learn. After a hard day's work, Elizabeth praised Ordal for his efforts, though she thought he might be overdoing it. He explained his plans to build walls, gates, and traps, making the village a veritable fortress that would take hundreds of soldiers to conquer. Maria, seeing the new wall, was in awe of its size. Ordal then revealed a present for the children, a brand new playground. The kids, overjoyed, ran off to play, with Fen eagerly joining them. In a dark cave nearby, a massive, shadowy serpent stirred. At the playground, the children eagerly pointed out the high places they could climb, showing off to Maria's papa. Ordal praised them for their good work. The villagers remarked on Maria's good reflexes, guessing she took after her father. The children happily told Ordal how much fun they'd been having since Maria arrived. Ordal reminded them that while playing is important, they needed to study properly as well. The children's lives had clearly improved. They told him how the bread was fluffier and their parents were happy when they wrote their names. With increased productivity from the great cows and reclaimed forest land, the children who once had to work could now spend their time playing and studying. The village was thriving. Just as Ordal was feeling proud, the village chief approached him with troubling news. A strange creature had been spotted in the village mine. It was a small, long-abandoned iron mine on the outskirts of the village. A miner named George had seen a long, thin creature with a hissing sound and ran away in fear. Deciding to investigate, Ordal went to fetch Elizabeth, who was tending to the cows. He told her they were going out, and she excitedly mistook it for a date invitation. He quickly corrected her, telling her to wear something easy to move in. He explained that the three of them, himself, Elizabeth, and Fen, would be heading to the mine to exterminate the creature. He told Elizabeth that Fen could talk, and as if on cue, Fen greeted her. Elizabeth was shocked. Ordal apologized for keeping Fen's true nature a secret and asked Elizabeth to do the same. Moved by Fen's story, Elizabeth readily agreed. Ordal then announced that this would be a training exercise for the two of them, and he would not be participating in the fight. He explained that it was a promise he'd made to Fen, and that Elizabeth needed a real opponent to keep her skills sharp. At the mine entrance, Elizabeth noted its small size. Ordal confirmed he'd been there before as a child, explaining it was a good place for an orphan like him to play. His idea of playing involved cutting down trees with a wooden sword and hunting wolf packs, a detail that shocked Elizabeth and made her realize that Ordal's normal was anything but. As they ventured deeper into the mine, he told them to focus. He sensed something was off. He suddenly shouted for them to watch out, warning them that something was coming. A giant snake materialized before them, a high-ranking magical beast known as a great iron snake. Ordal told them to eliminate it as planned. Elizabeth and Fen charged, but their attacks bounced harmlessly off the snake's tough scales. Ordal then casually added that he forgot to mention the snake's scales are as tough as iron. Its body is a mass of muscle, and its fangs are poisonous. Elizabeth, frustrated, decided to change tactics. She and Fen coordinated an attack on the snake's blind spot, but the creature dodged effortlessly. Ordal explained that the snake had poor vision, but extremely sharp senses, able to perceive their movements by smelling them with its mouth. That's why he had warned them it would be a strong opponent. With their current strategy failing, Elizabeth asked what they should do. Ordal delivered a harsh but necessary pep talk. He told Elizabeth that her talent was real, but she'd only ever fought people. To defeat a beast of this level, she needed to abandon her knightly pride and unleash her true, wilder strength. To Fen, he was even more direct, telling her she wouldn't be able to avenge her parents with such a cowardly face. He challenged her, asking if she, the successor of the proud magic White Wolves, was okay with that. His words hit home. With renewed determination, Elizabeth and Fen attacked with primal ferocity. Elizabeth drove her sword deep into the snake's head, finally defeating it. They celebrated their victory, exhausted but triumphant. Ordal praised them, giving them a score of 60, noting that while their power output was good, their control needed work. He then effortlessly sliced the massive snake's head in half, remarking on the sharpness of Elizabeth's sword. Both Elizabeth and Fen were left speechless, realizing just how vast the gap in power still was between them and the man known as the War Demon. That night, the village celebrated with a feast. Every part of the great iron snake was put to good use. Its scales and bones for weapons and armor, its skin for heat-resistant and waterproof materials, and its blood mixed with alcohol, a drink Ordal claimed was delicious. He gave all the materials to the villagers, saying he had no use for them. The blood-infused alcohol was apparently a potent medicine, making the villagers feel youthful and energetic. The snake meat, seasoned and grilled kabayaki style, was a huge hit. Maria loved it, thanking her papa for the delicious meal. After the feast, Ordal took Fen aside. He presented her with the snake's magic stone, the source of its power. He explained that high-ranking magic beasts consume the stones of their prey to gain new powers, and since she wanted to become strong, she should do the same. Fen, trusting him, devoured the stone. She immediately felt a surge of new power. Ordal told her that from now on, her training would involve hunting magic beasts and consuming their stones, but only the ones she hunted herself. The celebration continued late into the night. A tipsy Elizabeth hugged Maria and even Fen took a sip of the special alcohol, much to Maria's amusement. Ordal watched his new, noisy family with a smile, another happy memory being made. The day of the festival arrived, and a watchman spotted an approaching caravan. The village chief gave the order to open the gates, welcoming the visitors. At the training grounds, the vigilante corps was showing off their new equipment. The armor made from the great iron snake's scales was light and easy to move in, while the spears, forged from a mix of steel and the snake's bones, were incredibly durable. Ordal felt he may have overdone it a bit, but in a remote region fraught with danger, a strong defense force was a good idea. The men were growing stronger and more confident, having successfully hunted boars and wolves on their own. Ordal reminded them that their newfound strength was also a moment of great danger. Negligence, he warned, could cost a fighter their life. He told them not to forget that they were getting strong to protect, not just to kill. Just as he finished his speech, the caravan arrived. Meanwhile, at the newly established school, Elizabeth was finishing a lesson. The school was a success, with language and math courses held 5 times a week. As the children left for the day, she wished them a safe journey home. She was startled to find Ordal waiting for her. He praised her teaching, noting that the children seemed to be enjoying their lessons and that her practical approach was effective. Elizabeth was flustered by the sudden praise, and even more so when Maria cheekily reminded her of how drunk she'd gotten at the last party. Maria then ran up to Ordal, excited to see him. She had a math problem for her papa. She presented a scenario. There are 3 apples, then she adds 2, but Fen eats 1. How many are left? Ordal, who had learned math as a necessary skill for a mercenary commander, knew the simple answer was 4. But he hesitated, wondering if it was okay to be correct, or if he should let someone else have the victory. It was a surprisingly difficult parental dilemma. Elizabeth, seeing his struggle, gave him a pointed look. The village was bustling with the arrival of the caravan, a first for both Maria and Elizabeth. The head of the caravan was astonished by the changes in the village since his last visit. The new fortress-like fence, the large-scale farming, the herd of great cows, and most importantly, the healthy, well-fed children. He laughed, admitting he was impressed. He was even more shocked when Ordal offered to sell him materials from a great iron snake. Maria, meanwhile, was captivated by a cute hair ornament at one of the stalls. She wanted it but had no money, a fact that hit Ordal like a ton of bricks. He had completely forgotten to give her an allowance, a concept foreign to him as an orphan who had always taken what he needed through strength. Just as he was panicking, he saw Elizabeth expertly haggling with a merchant and got an idea. He called for Fen, promising her all the jerky she could eat. He sent her on an emergency mission. She found him a moment later, and he explained he'd forgotten to give Maria something that morning. Fen trotted over to Maria, a small pouch in her mouth. Inside was a pile of coins. Ordal watched from a distance, pleased that Maria had received her allowance for all her hard work. He looked forward to seeing what she would buy. Maria proudly purchased the hair ornament with her own money. When Fen questioned why he didn't just give it to her himself, Ordal explained the importance of using one's own money. Maria ran to him, showing off her new accessory. He told her it suited her, that she looked like a royal princess, and she beamed with happiness. Emboldened, she dragged him to look at skirts, much to his dismay and Fen's amusement. Later at home, Elizabeth was attempting to cook with disastrous results. Her omelet ended up a sad, splattered mess on the floor. She apologized to Maria, admitting she was a bad cook. Ordal reassured her, saying it was just practice, and that as a duke's daughter, she'd likely never had the chance to learn. Fen, seeing the dropped food, gave a considerate woof, which Elizabeth took as bridal training encouragement. Fen, however, was just thinking about the extra breakfast she'd get if Elizabeth kept failing. Ordal immediately saw through her kind facade, calling her a glutton. The next morning, after a much more successful breakfast, Ordal was heading out to work in the fields. Elizabeth caught up to him, saying she needed to talk. She was worried about Maria's education. She confessed that while she could teach the basics, Maria was an exceptionally bright student, far more advanced than any other 5-year-old she'd known, even among the nobility. Elizabeth felt she would soon hit the limit of her teaching abilities and suggested that, for Maria's future, it would be best to enroll her in an academy. The sooner the better. Ordal admitted he'd also thought Maria was clever, but had dismissed it as parental bias. As an older sister, Elizabeth wanted to help develop Maria's talents. He agreed to think about it, asking her to keep it a secret for now. He knew she was right, but the closest academy was far away in the capital. He couldn't let Maria go by herself. The implications were clear. If Maria went to an academy, he would have to leave the village as well. It was time for a decision. Maria proudly declared the answer to a math problem was 98, earning praise for her amazing skills. Ordal watched from the window, happy to see she loved studying and was already tackling difficult problems in her head. He mused that according to researchers in the capital, talent is passed down from parent to child. Since he wasn't particularly academic, Maria's intelligence must have come from her mother. He began to worry about the future. He'd done a lot for the village's defense and development, but such rapid growth could easily shatter the delicate balance. Was it right to abandon the village in its half-completed state? And what about Fen and Elizabeth? The three of them had become a real family. Was it right to separate them? He also considered the risks of moving to a big city. Was it necessary to go so far? His troubled thoughts were interrupted by the vigilante corps, who had noticed his distant behavior. They confronted him, asking if he didn't trust them enough to depend on them. Ordal admitted that they were still half-trained. In response, one of them launched a surprise attack, declaring that they would prove their strength. Ordal easily parried the improved thrust, but was surprised by their seriousness. The entire corps then charged him at once. He noted with approval that they were using the group battle foundations he had taught them, but he still found them naive. With a single powerful move, he disarmed them all, reminding them that there's always someone better. He then praised their excellent work and growth, saying there was no greater happiness for a teacher. To pay his respects to their growth, he unleashed a flurry of returned spears. They quickly retreated, regrouping to face their teacher. Ordal gave them full points for prioritizing their lives, a key lesson he had taught them. The men were proud that they hadn't lost, even if they couldn't win. Ordal commended them, saying that with their teamwork and strategy, they were the best self-defense unit on the continent. With a bit more practice, they could repel most burglars. They thanked him for his guidance, which had made them stronger. Then, one of them got to the heart of the matter. He begged Ordal to be honest about his feelings and go to the academy for Maria's sake. He confessed that they'd noticed his worrying and had asked Elizabeth what was wrong. The village chief, who was also in on it, approached them. Ordal felt defeated, realizing he had been so preoccupied with his own problems that he'd made everyone worry. The chief reassured him, saying the village had become prosperous and sturdy thanks to him and would be fine in his absence. As if on cue, Maria and the others arrived, wondering why everyone was gathered in front of their house. Ordal decided to ask Maria directly if she liked studying. She enthusiastically said she loved it and had learned a lot that day. He told her about a big school called an academy in a faraway city, where she could learn even more. Maria, having already heard about it from Elizabeth, was eager to go. Ordal assured her he would go with her, but warned her that she would have to leave the village and wouldn't see her friends for about a year. Maria considered this, but then beamed, declaring that she would be fine as long as her papa was with her because she loved him. Her simple, heartfelt answer cut through all of Ordal's worries. He had been straying from the path for 2 days, but now he knew what to do. He announced their decision to Elizabeth and Fen. Elizabeth, of course, insisted on coming with them. Fen was just as adamant, refusing to be left behind and vowing to protect Maria, even if it meant risking being found in a big city. The villagers, having overheard their after-school study sessions, were confident they could continue teaching the children themselves. With everything settled, Ordal, feeling a bit foolish for being the only one who had been lost, announced it was time to get ready to move. After packing his few belongings, he found Maria dressed in new traveling clothes. He told her they suited her well. Elizabeth was also ready, though Ordal thought she had packed a lot of weapons for a simple trip on the main road. She countered that she was wearing scale armor, so there was no need to worry about her. Ordal, who was only bringing a knife, simply said, "Let's set out." The entire village came to see them off, showering them with gifts and well wishes. Ordal promised to return soon, leaving the village in their capable hands. He then asked Elizabeth how they planned to transport Maria. The long journey would be impossible for a child on foot, and a war horse would be too rough. Elizabeth suggested that carrying her would be the best option. Ordal, thinking she was volunteering, called it an excellent idea, but Elizabeth clarified that she meant he should carry Maria as a normal dad would. With his strength, he could easily do it without jostling her. Maria, overjoyed, demanded her papa carry her. Faced with this ultimate test of fatherhood, Ordal accepted his fate. As he lifted her into his arms, she squealed with delight at how high she was. He was struck by how warm she felt and how much heavier she'd gotten since they first met. He was filled with a powerful protective instinct for his daughter. Elizabeth, seeing his teary eyes, asked if he was crying. He quickly brushed it off, claiming he just had something in his eye. And so, the small family set off on their new adventure. Unseen, a mysterious woman watched them leave from afar. She was pleased that Maria would grow up with the war demon by her side, thinking the change in him was what mattered most. Seeing Ordal with his daughter stirred a strange feeling in her chest, a mix of emotions she couldn't quite place. She had noticed him, the strongest of humanity's warriors, and had used him for Maria's birth for a specific purpose, to awaken a stimulus within Maria. And now, watching them, she felt nothing at all. As they traveled, Elizabeth marveled at how Ordal could carry Maria without the water in her cup even shaking. He explained that his heartfelt vow not to shake her had awakened a new sense of balance and stability, a mysterious technique born from his love for his daughter. Fen was impressed, calling him a doting parent. Ordal, unfamiliar with the term, learned it meant a parent who loves their child to a strange extent. He decided he liked the sound of it, much better than war demon. Elizabeth agreed, remarking that no one in the capital could have predicted the fearsome warrior would become such a loving father. Ordal acknowledged that he had changed, becoming weaker after giving up his weapons and devoting himself to Maria. Elizabeth, however, thought he was even more wonderful now than before, a secret confession that he brushed off, telling her to hurry up. She playfully tried to get his attention, with even Fen sympathizing with her efforts. He simply called them an energetic bunch and walked on ahead. Suddenly, Ordal stopped them, sensing something up ahead. They cautiously approached to find a carriage being attacked by brigands. It was an ambush. Ordal told Maria to wait with Fen, while he and Elizabeth assessed the situation. The attackers were not amateurs. They moved like trained soldiers. The crest on the carriage belonged to the church, yet the number of guards was suspiciously low for such an extravagant vehicle. Elizabeth concluded there must be dissent within the church's ranks, and they had purposely made the carriage vulnerable. As a father, Ordal knew he had to live a life Maria could be proud of. He couldn't turn a blind eye. He asked Elizabeth to watch over Maria, reassuring her that he could handle the attackers alone. Donning his mask to protect his identity, he went to intervene. He approached the brigands, pretending to be a normal traveler. He then claimed to be a fanatical believer of the church and asked to join their side, a ruse to get closer. The leader, unimpressed, ordered his men to kill him and push the cart into the valley. Ordal, not having time to deal with them, swiftly incapacitated the leader from a distance. The remaining men, enraged, charged at him. He warned them to leave, threatening not to hold back as he had with their leader. They panicked and fled, but not before cutting the horses loose, sending the carriage careening toward the cliff edge. Ordal managed to stop it just in time. For whatever reason, it seemed someone wanted the person inside dead. Maria, watching from a safe distance, was in awe of her papa's strength. Elizabeth praised Ordal for winning barehanded without killing anyone. He admitted it would have been faster to kill them, but with Maria in his life, he had to be more careful. He had let the carriage fall to make the attackers think their mission was a success. He then turned his attention to the girl he had just rescued from the carriage. He couldn't believe such an important person, the saintess of the church, would be in such a dangerous situation. Only a handful of church leaders and nobles even knew of her existence. The girl emerged from the wreckage, her voice confirming her identity. Ordal introduced his daughter, Maria, and their pet, Fen. The saintess was moved by Maria's proper introduction. She thanked Ordal for saving her, but it was clear it was a misunderstanding on her part, mistaking him for someone else. She explained that her guards had been killed, and she had been on her way to protect Ordal. She asked why the symbol of the church was on these remote mountain roads. The saintess explained her story. After the previous saintess died, she, a simple village girl, received a revelation on her 5th birthday and became the new one. The church's knights had forcibly taken her from her parents, who did not resist the will of their faith. Her parents were returned to the earth, a euphemism Ordal quickly deciphered as them being killed by the knights. Now she had nowhere to go. Returning to the church meant certain assassination, and seeking refuge in another country would make her a political pawn. Frankly, Ordal didn't want to get involved, as it would threaten his peaceful life with Maria. The saintess, feeling her life was not valuable, offered it to the Lord. Ordal, seeing the look in her eyes, couldn't turn her away. It was his loss. He invited her to come with them. Maria, overhearing their conversation, was happy to accept, declaring her love for her papa. Ordal told the former saintess that from now on, she was just an ordinary girl named Lily. He offered her a place in their family, a gesture that brought tears to her eyes. And just like that, the family had grown again. Ordal felt himself becoming soft. He figured having the refined Lily around would be a good influence on Maria's development. With their diversion over, they continued their journey to the academy. They arrived in the academy city of Ruda, once a small country town, now the third largest city in the kingdom. A renowned sage had founded the academy there long ago, attracting the heirs of nobles and great merchants. Over time, residences, shops, and workers flocked to the city, creating its unique character. Maria was captivated by the bustling streets, exclaiming how big the city was. Lily was equally impressed, but Elizabeth, used to the grander scale of the capital, was less so. She then pointed out a huge tower, and Ordal explained it was the Academy's symbol tower, a repository of important historical documents. Fen's nose led them to a food stall, a concept new to Maria. Ordal explained it was a place where you could pay and eat while walking. Maria was worried about bad manners, but he assured her it was fine at a stall like this. They bought some grilled meat on a stick. Maria took a bite and her eyes lit up. It was delicious. Elizabeth and Lily also enjoyed the food, with the stalls of Ruda leaving a strong impression. Fen, ever hungry, wanted more, and Lily, charmed by some sweet-smelling treats, offered to buy some, proudly declaring herself the eldest big sister. As the sun began to set, Ordal decided it was time to move on. Elizabeth assumed they would find a long-term inn, but Ordal had other plans. They would go directly to the academy to apply for Maria's enrollment. They arrived at the academy's impressive gates, which were heavily guarded. Inside, a stern-looking administrator questioned their application, stating that the elementary courses began at age 7. Ordal, having heard from an old friend who worked there, knew that talented children could enter earlier. The administrator conceded that this was true, but only for those who met the academic requirements. He gave Maria a written test, saying she would be enrolled if she scored at least a 70. He then condescendingly asked if she could even read and write. Maria, who loved tests and writing, eagerly accepted the challenge. The administrator then demanded a letter of introduction, a requirement for non-nobles. He also mentioned a large security deposit, citing the academy's prestigious history. It was clear he was creating bureaucratic hurdles. Ordal, unfazed, presented a small medal, a memento from his friend Richmond, asking if it would serve as an introduction. The administrator scoffed, but his demeanor changed when he recognized the name. Richmond was now the vice principal of the academy. He paled, realizing the medal bore the vice principal's seal. Just then, Maria finished her test, completing it with surprising speed. The administrator was shocked to find she had answered every question correctly. Ordal realized the man had given a 5-year-old a test designed for 10-year-olds, intending for her to fail. Ordal, with a menacing grin, casually stamped her perfect answer sheet with the vice principal's medal. The administrator, now sweating profusely, could only stammer in fear. Ordal leaned in, wondering aloud what Richmond would do if he heard about this. The man immediately capitulated, confirming that Maria had passed and providing them with information for the entrance ceremony next week. He bowed deeply, looking forward to working with them. As they left, Ordal praised Maria for doing well on the exam. She was already excited for school to start. Outside, Elizabeth and the others were waiting. They were thrilled to hear Maria had been enrolled. They congratulated her warmly. With enrollment settled, the next step was finding a place to live. Elizabeth suggested an inn, but she had a better idea. She led them to a grand building, a trade company that catered to nobles. Ordal felt out of place, but Elizabeth explained her plan. She was buying a house with their growing family. A house would provide a more relaxing and suitable environment for Maria to study in. The realtor presented them with a property that matched their conditions. A quiet house on the outskirts of the city with a spacious garden close to the academy. Ordal, seeing it was a good property, agreed to buy it if it checked out, but the price was steep. He then pulled out the magic core from the great iron snake, asking the realtor to appraise it and convert it to money. The man was stunned by the size and rarity of the magic core. He immediately offered to have his supervisor appraise it and guided them to a special waiting room. Ordal, however, was eager to see the property and passed on the special treatment. The realtor quickly arranged a carriage, and they all went to see their potential new home. The house was a beautiful villa in a quiet, pleasant neighborhood. Ordal noted its defensive advantages. The garden was filled with beautiful flowers, a legacy from the previous owner who used the property as a rest home. Without even looking inside, Ordal decided to buy it. Elizabeth found his boldness very much in character. He requested the contract of sale be prepared immediately, asking if they could move in that day. Maria was overjoyed at the news that they would be living there. Ordal tended to the garden of their new home, pleased with how it was looking. Maria then burst out, excitedly showing off her new school uniform. Ordal and the others admired how well it suited her. It was as if it had been designed just for her. Elizabeth, watching Ordal's proud expression, told him that while it was fine to admire Maria, he needed to get changed as well. She and Lily giggled, remarking on what a doting parent he was and how much he loved Maria. Ordal, slightly flustered, adjusted his formal wear and announced it was time to go. As they left for the entrance ceremony, Elizabeth and Lily wished them a good day. They arrived at the Rudo Academy Chapel, a grand hall filled with new students and their parents. Maria was amazed by the sheer number of children. Ordal noted that, as expected, Maria was the youngest student there. All the others were 7 or older. An announcement called for everyone to take their seats. Ordal told Maria to walk with pride, and she promised to do her best. He assured her he would be watching from a seat behind her, and she confidently said she would be fine on her own. Ordal found his seat, surrounded by the wealthy parents of the other students. Dressed in his formal clothes, he doubted anyone would recognize him. He had never worn such uncomfortable attire, not even in front of the king. In his past life, freedom and fighting were all that mattered. But now, for Maria's sake, he was participating in an entrance ceremony, a change he embraced as a father. His days were more fulfilling now than they ever were as a mercenary. Meanwhile, in the student seating area, Maria was approached by a group of older girls. The leader, a girl named Claudia, haughtily asked if she was a commoner. She explained the academy's caste system, signified by the color of their mantles: purple for nobles like them, yellow for rich upper-class citizens, and pink for commoners. Ordal, watching from the audience, understood the academy's reliance on donations from the wealthy necessitated such a visual distinction. An education policy he found distasteful. Claudia, a count's daughter and reportedly the best in the school, told Maria that as a commoner she couldn't go against them. Ordal considered stepping in, but decided against it, believing a parent's intervention would be a stupid idea. Maria, remembering something Elizabeth had taught her, simply introduced herself and asked to be friends. Claudia was flustered and speechless at this unexpected and innocent response. The ceremony began, and the vice principal announced that the student with the best entrance exam score would give a greeting. The other girls assumed it would be Claudia, but to everyone's surprise, Maria was called to the stage. She gave a simple but heartfelt speech, expressing her love for studying and her happiness at being in the academy. She ended by encouraging everyone to do their best, and her words were met with applause. Ordal was relieved. It seemed Maria would be just fine. As the ceremony ended, he was approached by a familiar face. It was his old friend, Richmond, now clean-shaven and dressed in the robes of a vice principal. Richmond explained that he had found Ordal by recognizing his medal's mark on Maria's exam papers, and then looking for a parent with an unusually large physique. He teased Ordal, saying a girl who takes after her father will grow up to be a beauty, and that Maria was sure to be a beautiful maiden. Ordal was flustered, but Richmond just laughed, saying he was as clever as ever. He explained that while his title was vice principal, he was more of a jack-of-all-trades, a tough but successful life. As the hall emptied, he invited Ordal for drinks once he was settled in. Maria then ran up to her father, a bright smile on her face. She asked if her greeting was good, and he praised her, saying it was splendid, and that she had suddenly become a young lady. As they walked home hand in hand, Ordal felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had to become a praiseworthy dad that Maria could be proud of. His first step: find a job. A cheerful Maria announces that she's going now, leaving for school. Her father, Ordal, watches her leave with his arms crossed, telling her to do her best and study before deciding what to do next. Thinking of Maria's future, Ordal resolves to find a job quickly and heads to an employment office, a place he hasn't been to in a long time. Inside, he tells a clerk with glasses that he's looking for any available work. The clerk, who seems to have experience recruiting mercenaries, understands his situation and asks if he possesses any special skills so she can find a matching job. Ordal pauses to think, then states that he supposes his special skill is killing people. The clerk is visibly shocked by this answer. Ordal continues, listing his proficiency in leading units, devising strategies, and carrying out night raids to destroy enemy bases. The clerk stammers in disbelief over his brutal skill set. After a moment of stunned silence, the clerk thanks him for his honest, if unsettling, answer. Recovering her composure, she tells him that based on his skills, The viceroy is recruiting capable men for mercenary work. Ordal knew this would be the result of his explanation, but he apologizes and turns down the offer. He explains that as a father, he needs a job he can be proud of, one that doesn't involve harming others, and asks if they have any normal work available. The clerk, intrigued, asks what he means by a normal job, and if he has any normal special skills, unlike the ones he just mentioned. Ordal thinks for a moment before mentioning that he is also skilled in construction. The clerk notes this down as physical labor and repairs, and Ordal confirms he's quite strong. She asks him to wait while she searches for something suitable. While he waits, Ordal worries about Maria's life at the academy, especially concerning the Earl's daughter. He knows he can't compromise on his daughter's well-being and wishes he could solve the issues caused by their difference in social status. The clerk soon returns, apologizing for the wait. Ordal briefly considers that moving to the Empire could make him a noble and solve Maria's bullying problem, but he immediately dismisses the idea. Being separated from Maria in Ruda would make it all meaningless. He rejects that path, deciding to find a normal job nearby. He hopes for something close to the academy with flexible hours so he can keep an eye on his daughter. Just then, the clerk presents an offer, and Ordal wonders if such a convenient job could possibly exist. He eagerly points to the job listing, declaring it's the one he wants. The clerk warns him that it's a very low-paying job, but Ordal insists he doesn't mind. She finds it strange that he's seeking work if money isn't a concern, but he simply reiterates his point. She hesitantly asks if he's sure, as the job involves very heavy labor. The listing is for a sanitation worker at Ruda Academy. Ordal is certain, declaring it the best possible job and that he'd like to accept it. The clerk provides him with a letter of recommendation for the executive office at the academy. Ordal gratefully accepts it, realizing that while guardians aren't allowed on campus, this job will let him watch over Maria from as close as possible. At the academy's executive office, a man reviews his application, noting his diligence and the fact that his daughter is a student before officially hiring him. Ordal begins his duties, which involve collecting and burning trash as well as repairing fences and walls. He reflects that while it would be heavy labor for an ordinary person, his martial arts make it manageable, and he appreciates that the job is results-oriented. The executive is amazed at how quickly Ordal finishes his work, which would normally take until dusk. He states his belief that jobs should be done quickly and carefully, appreciating Ordal's efficiency and dismissing him for the day. With his work done, Ordal decides to go check on Maria. He peeks over a wall to see her in class, where a teacher is asking for the answer to a question. Later, two girls approach Maria, one of them asking for a moment of her time. The other girl explains that Claudia-sama wishes to speak with her and asks her to meet them behind the chapel. Maria cheerfully agrees without a second thought. Ordal, watching from a distance, senses that things are about to turn bad and that the bullies are finally making their move. Maria arrives at the meeting spot, apologizing for making Claudia wait and explaining that the bento her sister Lily made was too delicious to rush. One of Claudia's friends scolds her for being late, but Maria just asks what they wanted to talk about, excitedly rambling about her wonderful sisters, Lily the cook and Elizabeth the strong one. Ordal decides to just watch for now. The other girl impatiently reminds Maria that Claudia-sama wanted to talk to her, not hear about her family. Maria, remembering, says that's right. She leans in very close to Claudia, eagerly asking what she wanted to discuss. Claudia and her friend are visibly flustered by her proximity. The friend shoves Maria away, calling her a commoner and telling her not to get so close to Claudia-sama. Ordal clenches his fist, forcing himself to endure the sight. He tells himself that a parent has to believe in their child. Meanwhile, the girl continues to antagonize Maria, calling her cocky. Maria, however, effortlessly dodges the push. The girls are stunned. Maria, completely unfazed, asks what's wrong and then brightly suggests they're play fighting, just like back in her village. The girl who pushed her angrily tells her to shut up. Maria just laughs, finding the situation fun and easily evading the two girls as they try to grab her. Soon, the two are panting from exhaustion, while Maria isn't even out of breath, cheerfully asking if they are okay. Ordal muses on his daughter's impressive reflexes and dynamic visual acuity, remembering how she used to climb things other children couldn't. He wonders if she takes after him. While strength is important for kids, he wants her to grow up more refined. It's both a happy and a sad thought, a complicated feeling. He sighs, realizing that simply watching over his daughter's academy life is proving to be quite difficult. Later, Ordal shows Lily a recruitment leaflet he found for a bakery. Lily's face lights up at the sight of it. Ordal explains that it's a tough job with early hours and low pay, recounting a story about a mercenary from a baker family who found combat easier than working at home. Lily reveals that her parents were bakers, sharing hazy but fond memories of the smell of fresh bread and the warmth of her family's bakery. She confesses that ever since she was young, she wanted to be a baker too. Ordal encourages her to chase that dream again, and a tearful Lily says she would love to. He gently reminds her that the road to mastery is a difficult one, but Lily confidently declares she's prepared for it, adding that she's stronger than she looks. Ordal reflects on Lily's harsh past as a so-called holy woman, and feels proud to see her mustering the courage to move forward. He tells her to go for it and apply for the position, which brings Lily to tears of joy as she thanks him. Suddenly, Fen bounds into the room, excitedly asking if this means she'll get to eat fresh bread. Lily is shocked that Fen can talk. Ordal explains that Fen can communicate with her, and the wolf gives Lily a friendly greeting. Lily tells Ordal that she can sense Fen has had a bitter past. She explains that her senses are different from others. She can perceive things that are normally unseen or unheard. Ordal recognizes this as the Saintess's power, noting that while his own martial arts give him heightened perception, Lily's abilities are on an entirely different level. Ordal says he'd noticed Fen was a unique existence and tells Lily she can depend on the wolf's strength. Fen nuzzles up to Lily, who accepts her as a companion. Ordal chuckles, realizing he'll have to explain what a bakery is to Fen. The wolf, unconcerned with the details, just wants to know if there will be bread. Lily then tells Ordal she has one more request for him, and he encourages her to speak freely. She asks if he will be the first to taste her bread once she successfully reproduces her parents' recipe. Ordal smiles, saying it's an easy request to grant. Delighted, Lily vows to become a great baker, and Ordal says he's looking forward to it. He feels content now that almost everyone in their small family has found a job. At that moment, Elizabeth bolts out of the room, crying that she's the only one left and is heading to the employment office right now. Ordal watches her go, wryly wondering if she can do anything besides wield a sword. He quietly wishes her the best, once again feeling the profound difficulty of being a father. Maria runs into Claudia and her friends at a high-end stationery shop, cheerfully asking if they also came to shop there. She then leans in close to Claudia and innocently asks if she hasn't entered the wrong store. A confused Claudia asks what she means, and Maria explains that she assumed Claudia was also there for stationery, completely missing the intended slight of her previous question. One of Claudia's friends steps in, sneering that this is a store for nobles and that a commoner like Maria sticks out. Ordal, watching from a distance, realizes that Claudia is still holding a grudge from their last encounter and is picking another fight. Maria, however, completely misinterprets the friend's comment as a compliment and thanks her, then gets adorably confused about the meaning of ironic. Ordal sighs in disbelief. Maria is so pure that the other girl's nastiness completely flies over her head. He reminds himself that he can't get involved in children's fights, but it's still unpleasant to hear his daughter being spoken to in such a way. Deciding to intervene indirectly, he approaches the counter and asks for the best item they have. The shopkeeper recognizes him as the man who brought in the high-quality magic core the other day. The shopkeeper explains that what Ordal is looking for is a specialty product reserved for specific customers. But since it's him, Ordal understands he's been registered as a special client, and stating that cost is no object, asks to see the item. Just then, the head of the trading company appears to personally greet Ordal, thanking him for the magic core, and remarking that one should never cheap out on their equipment. He then asks what Ordal needs today. Ordal explains he's just there to buy stationery for his daughter, and that he prefers to inspect products himself. The company head says that a client of his stature could have just sent for it. The shopkeeper returns with the item, presenting a beautiful fountain pen and inkwell set. He declares it the pride of their store. The company head then turns to Claudia and humbly apologizes, explaining that such exclusive items are only sold to special customers. He elaborates that relationships with valuable clients are more important to merchants than fame, implying Ordal's status is higher than the daughter of the Varmint house. Claudia is left speechless and fuming. Utterly humiliated, she shouts that she hates it and storms out of the shop. Her friends panic and chase after her, warning her that the direction she's heading is dangerous. Ordal watches them go, thinking it's better to just let her be, but Maria calls out her friend's name. He stops Claudia's two friends, tells them to go home, and warns them not to speak of this to anyone. Suddenly, Maria cries out for Claudia, having spotted her being cornered by shady men in an alley. Ordal quickly assesses the situation. They are professional kidnappers who won't harm the girl as long as they get their money. Maria looks at him with pleading eyes. She tearfully tells her father that Claudia is one of her important friends. Ordal is surprised. Despite Claudia ostracizing her, Maria still considers her a friend. He reflects that his old self wouldn't have interfered, but he understands that for a young girl, this could be a lifelong trauma. He can't let Maria's friend suffer. He tells his daughter to leave it to him, and her face lights up with gratitude. He decides to take her to Lily's bakery nearby, where she'll be safe with Fen. They find not only Lily but Elizabeth at the bakery, which is perfect. Ordal quickly explains what's happening. Elizabeth confidently tells him to leave Maria with her. Maria wishes her papa to be careful as he and Fen depart for the rescue. They track the kidnappers to the slums, a lawless area just as Ordal expected. Fen picks up the scent. The wolf leads them to a building, confirming the kidnappers are inside. Ordal dons a mask and decides on a surprise attack, bursting through the door. The guards are shocked and try to stop him, but he takes them out effortlessly. Inside, he quickly dispatches another guard, noting that it would be a hassle if he killed them. He spots a trapdoor and assumes that's where they're holding Claudia. He smashes through the floor, landing in the cellar below. The kidnappers are stunned by his sudden appearance, wondering who the masked bastard is. He spots Claudia and confirms his target is there. Ordal moves in a flash, neutralizing all the thugs. Soon only the boss remains. Ordal tells him to surrender. The boss, terrified, calls him a monster. Ordal grabs the boss, telling him that while he won't criticize his line of work, he must remember that it carries great risks. The defeated boss agrees. Ordal asks what the ransom demand was, and the man stammers that it was 20 million rupees. Ordal tosses him a pouch of jewels worth 30 million, telling him to use it to settle things with his people. He then gives a final, chilling order: never touch Claudia or any of the other children from the academy again. The boss promises profusely. As Ordal leaves with the girl, he warns the man that a disguise is useless because he has memorized all of their faces and voices, and if he sees them again, they will die. The boss agrees to remember this, and with his last bit of courage, asks who Ordal is. Ordal glances back before leaving. He simply states that he is just a passerby from the country. He returns to the bakery carrying the unconscious Claudia. Maria rushes to greet him, relieved to see her friend is okay, though Ordal explains she just fainted. When Claudia wakes up, she's confused. She vaguely remembers being captured by a suspicious group. Maria cheerfully explains that her papa saved her. Claudia looks at Ordal, shocked to learn he is Maria's father. She thanks him, but he brushes it off, saying he only did it because his daughter asked. Claudia then turns to Maria, asking why she helped after she had bullied her. She confesses that she was jealous of her. Ordal finally understands that Claudia's jealousy was the cause of all the trouble. He pieces it together. As a count's daughter, she couldn't stand losing the top student position to a commoner like Maria. Maria simply replies that saving her was a matter of course. She takes Claudia's hands and says that, after all, Claudia is her friend. Touched, Claudia tears up as Maria happily suggests they be friends forever. Claudia emotionally agrees. Through a tearful smile, Claudia says she hopes they can be friends. Ordal watches, pleased to see her genuine expression. Later, Maria asks if they can host a tea party for Claudia and the others, and Ordal agrees it's a great idea. Claudia says she's looking forward to it. The sight of this newfound friendship brings a tear to Ordal's eye. The feared war demon is moved by such a simple, pure moment. Claudia tells Maria that her father is kind, strong, and amazing, and Maria proudly agrees, much to Ordal's surprise. Ordal, Elizabeth, Lily, Fen, and Maria get ready to leave for the Academy Sports Day. Elizabeth is particularly spirited, declaring that as the eldest daughter, she has to do her best. Ordal, on the other hand, is a bit worried, feeling that an accident is bound to happen with one of the kingdom's most prominent knights getting serious. He voices his concern about Elizabeth's short-sleeved outfit, but Lily reassures him, offering to quickly craft some armor from leftover materials from the great iron snake. Maria chimes in, telling her papa he worries too much and that she'll be fine. Ordal relents and they head out. They arrive at the Rudu Academy's Coliseum, the grand venue for the day's events. Ordal knows the way, telling Elizabeth the entrance is just ahead. Lily asks if he's been here before, and he explains he came often as a mercenary for the Ruda nobles. Maria excitedly points out a large stone statue. She remarks that the warrior in the statue looks strong, and Ordal agrees. Maria excitedly exclaims that there is a big stone person. Lily wonders if the statue could be of Ordal, and he confirms that it is. Ordal admits that looking at the lion mask now makes him feel embarrassed, though he once thought it was the coolest thing. He explains that he looked different back then. Elizabeth asks if he was a gladiator, to which he replies that he was wrapped up in some trouble. He recounts an old story of how he fought for a year at the Colosseum to pay off a noble's debt and was never defeated once. An announcer calls for the elementary students to gather for the first event, the skills race. Lily and Elizabeth cheer for Maria, wishing her luck. Elizabeth notices Ordal seems unwell and asks if he's okay. He looks pale, and Elizabeth wonders if he's nervous. Ordal is taken aback. He's never felt nervous before, not even in front of kings, emperors, or entire armies. But he realizes his condition is indeed strange. He concludes that his worry for Maria is causing him stress. He feels like a powerless demon, caught in a contradiction of wanting Maria to do well, but also not wanting her to get hurt. He clenches his fist, frustrated that even as the demon of war, there's nothing he can do to help. He wishes there was something he could do. As the race begins, the announcer gives the ready signal. The kids take their marks, and Elizabeth shouts encouragement to Maria. Ordal, however, knows the real show starts after they draw lots, and that the most effective time to cheer is yet to come. Just as Maria draws her lot, Ordal shouts her name, telling her to go forward without wavering. Maria nods, determined. She skillfully navigates the balance beam, and she crosses the finish line in first place. Everyone celebrates her victory, congratulating Ordal. Ordal, wiping sweat from his brow, is amazed at how much parents stress over these events, feeling his own training is lacking. Maria runs up to him, excitedly asking if he saw her win. She thanks him, saying she heard his cheering, and that it will motivate her for the rest of the events. Lily lists the upcoming events: a foot race, a bowl toss, and a relay. Ordal realizes his hard work paid off since Maria heard him. The thought of enduring that stress 3 more times makes him sweat. After the events, the family enjoys lunch together. Maria asks if they're all participating in the tug-of-war, and Elizabeth and Lily eagerly agree, ready to show their skills. The announcer calls for all family members participating in the tug-of-war to get ready. Ordal's group heads to the field. The teams gather. The announcer gives instructions. Ordal notices a few strong-looking parents on the opposing team and decides that while it's not good to stand out, he should still put in some effort. The match begins, and the opposing team has the initial advantage. Ordal thinks it's time to get a bit serious. With a powerful heave, he and his team pull the rope, but he is careful to use just a bit of his strength. His team wins. Maria, Lily, and Fen celebrate the victory. Ordal wonders if he overdid it, reflecting on how difficult it is to hold back. Even at less than half his strength, and without using spirit martial arts, the win was decisive. Next is the final event, the relay race. Maria is chosen as the anchor for her team, a crucial position. Elizabeth is amazed that Maria, the youngest, was given such an important role. Ordal recognizes it as the rearguard, a position of great responsibility. The race is intense. By the time it's Claudia's turn, her team is behind, but she fights hard. Ordal thinks that if they keep this up, they'll surely win. The baton is passed to the next runner, but disaster strikes. The runner stumbles and drops the baton. She scrambles to pick it up, knowing she has to hurry. She hands it to Maria, apologizing profusely. The girl begins to cry, but Maria reassures her, saying it's okay. The girl is still distraught, but Maria is resolute. The girl looks up, surprised by Maria's determination. Maria tells her it's okay because she will do her best. She takes off like a shot. She quickly overtakes the other runners, and her friends cheer her on in amazement. She crosses the finish line, neck and neck with the other team's anchor. Everyone holds their breath as the announcer prepares to declare the winner. He congratulates Maria's team on their huge comeback, awarding them the trophy. The team celebrates their victory, and Ordal watches with a proud, subtle smile. Later, Ordal sighs in exhaustion. Sports day was truly bad for his heart. He reflects that it was a competition truly bad for his heart as he looks at the sky. 10 months have passed since Ordal and his family came to Ruda, and their memories in the town continue to grow. One morning, Ordal runs into his old friend Richmond. Richmond jokes that he thought Ordal might have broken into the academy because he was worried about Maria, but is amazed to find him working a quiet gardening job there. He finds it crazy that the legendary war demon is now a simple gardener. He muses that hiding out in a small academy is an unexpected move for a hero, but Ordal says he's not that calculating. He hasn't been noticed by anyone. Ordal clarifies that he's just working a stable job for his daughter's sake. Richmond then invites Ordal for a drink that night to catch up on old times. Ordal agrees, confident that Elizabeth, Fen, and the others can handle things at home. Richmond suggests a backstreet shop they used to frequent, and they agree to meet there later. Ordal arrives at the bustling tavern and finds Richmond, who says he just got there himself. They order drinks and prepare to toast. Richmond suggests a toast to their hard work at the sports day, where he was busy with the executive committee. Ordal agrees, and they toast to that. They clink their mugs together and take a drink. Richmond asks if they should order food, but Ordal says he ate at home and is fine with snacks. Richmond is still amused by the thought of Ordal, the man who used to eat solely to get stronger, now having family meals. Richmond notes that this change must be due to his family, especially Maria. Ordal admits that when it comes to his daughter, he can't think calmly, but Richmond might be right. He reflects on how Maria has a natural power to change people, just as she did in their village. At the academy, she has ignored the social hierarchy and befriended Claudia and other classmates, enjoying her school life to the fullest. Richmond then shares some impressive news. Maria is set to graduate from the elementary course in just 2 months, a feat that usually takes 5 years. Ordal is shocked but trusts Richmond's judgment, as he's known as the wisest person on the continent. Richmond guarantees she'll graduate safely. Ordal is filled with a father's pride, realizing that his initial plan to stay for just a year has been surpassed by his daughter's happiness and academic success. The thought of what to do after her graduation in 2 months lingers in his mind. He decides to think about it closer to the time, as Maria might want to pursue further knowledge. Richmond senses his friend's unease and asks if something is worrying him. He encourages Ordal to talk, reminding him that they work at the same place. Ordal admits it's a job-related concern. He tells Richmond that the Academy's administration is in some trouble. He explains that a bothersome edict has come from the king. A messenger arrived recently to inform them that a large, particular tax is being imposed on Rudu Academy. Ordal asks if the principal tried to negotiate a lower rate, but Richmond explains that the Academy, running on donations and low taxes, simply can't afford the new amount. When the principal consulted the king, he flew into a rage and announced he would be coming to Ruda next week with the Royal Knights for a current status investigation. Richmond fears that at this rate, the Academy will be ruined by the king's greed. He vows to hold them off until the graduation ceremony, even if it means selling his precious book collection. Ordal is touched by his friend's dedication, reminding him that his books are the most important thing to him after his life. Richmond replies that now, as the vice principal, the academy is his priority. Ordal looks grim. Later, he finds Elizabeth training and asks her about the Royal Knights. She knows of them generally, but has never fought alongside them. She's not sure of their strength. She explains that the kingdom gathered capable warriors, with mercenaries for offense and knights for defense. Rumor has it that among the knights, a certain swordsman is the best at protecting. The strongest and most renowned of them is the master swordsman, Sir Galahad. Ordal is stunned to hear that name. He recalls that Galahad was a wandering knight who refused to serve any country, no matter the price. He's surprised to hear he's now an instructor for the Royal Knights. He wonders what could have happened in the capital after he left, and why a man like Galahad would serve such a king. Elizabeth thanks him for the information she gathered while job hunting. Ordal deduces that the cowardly king would surely bring his best guard, the master swordsman, on the inspection. This complicates his plan to save the academy. Appealing directly to the king will be difficult with the Royal Knights and Galahad present, and the risk of his identity being revealed is high. His peaceful life is in jeopardy, and he's at a loss for what to do when Maria's voice snaps him out of his thoughts. Meanwhile, in the capital city, news of the Royal Knights' deployment to Ruda spreads. Inside the castle, the king cackles with glee, planning to show the cocky academy bastards his mighty power and increase his personal funds. Elsewhere in the castle, a beautiful woman speaks with Galahad, expressing her distrust but agreeing to obey him if she can face that man. Galahad silently accepts, and she looks forward to the encounter. The woman muses that the king's move is foolish, but she doesn't care as long as it fulfills her desire to finally face the war demon, Ordal, and fulfill her dream of cutting up his body. After a delicious Hamburg steak dinner, Maria thanks Lily for the meal, and Ordal praises her cooking. They clean up the dishes together. Ordal tells the girls to head to bed, as he's going out for drinks with Richmond. Lily wishes him well. Ordal heads out to a roadside fort, where the king is staying for the night. He reflects that the information he bought from the Thieves' Guild, though expensive, was worth it. They confirmed the king's location and his plan to set out for Ruda in the morning. The king brought a large force with him, likely to coerce the academy. Ordal finds the tactic typical of the king. He decides it's time to make his move, but just as he's about to go, Elizabeth appears, startling him and asking him to wait. He's shocked to see her. He asks if she was following him, impressed that she managed to do so without him noticing. Elizabeth explains that Fen helped her track him by scent. She admits that tailing him would be impossible for her alone. She then reveals she followed him because she was worried, noticing he'd been acting off for the past couple of days. Ordal asks if she's referring to when he asked about the royal guards. He admits he couldn't compose himself with everything going on. He guesses she won't go home even if he tells her to. Elizabeth passionately declares she won't, as she must help her precious Ordal when he's in trouble. She then quiets down, realizing they might be noticed. She points to the guards at the fort, and Ordal confirms they are the royal guards he asked about. Elizabeth, ever the warrior, asks if they're going to take them all out. Ordal tells her no. They'll be sneaking in to talk to the king directly without using swords. Elizabeth is flabbergasted, thinking the plan is crazy and far more difficult than fighting. She raises her voice in protest, and Ordal has to shush her. He explains that for Maria's sake, he doesn't want to spill any blood. He tells her to leave her weapon behind. Elizabeth reluctantly agrees, not wanting to be left behind. They easily infiltrate the fort, and Elizabeth comments on how simple it was. Ordal warns her not to let her guard down. Inside, they find the guards are noisy and celebrating, making it easy to move around unnoticed. This isn't a combat mission, after all. Ordal comments that Elizabeth's disguise suits her, and she says she'll be fine as she's not a wanted woman. He wryly notes that he, on the other hand, is a dead man, and she's a runaway princess. He says they'll have to figure something out if they are found. As they move through the corridors, Ordal senses guards who can use spiritual martial arts. He's disappointed by the decline in the knight's skill level since he left the capital. He wonders if something happened internally to cause such a drop in quality. They silently take out a few guards. Ordal confirms that they can now speak freely, as the guards won't wake up for a while. He points to the top of a tower, saying the king is in that room. Elizabeth asks if it's okay to just leave the unconscious guards, and Ordal reassures her. He believes that with this, the academy can be saved without bloodshed. All that's left is to persuade the king. As they're about to proceed, he senses a presence and stops Elizabeth. An ambush. Ordal calls out to the hidden figure, who is impressed at being noticed. Ordal admits he couldn't sense the person's presence at all, and the figure confirms he had perfectly erased it. The figure, a man with long dark hair, steps out of the shadows. Ordal asks how he knew they were there, and the man replies it was intuition, the most trustworthy thing on a battlefield. The man seems to be a student of combat, noting that many who aim high learn from the strong. Ordal then asks him to release the technique he's using on Elizabeth. The man apologizes for his rudeness. Elizabeth warns Ordal to be careful, sensing the man is not normal. Ordal tells Galahad they just want to talk to the king. Galahad finds it amusing that masked intruders breaking in late at night would claim to have no hostility. Ordal says his mask is a hobby and that the conversation will be quicker at night. Galahad notes he isn't carrying any weapons, which supports his claim of non-hostility. Galahad finds him interesting, breaking into the fort of the most powerful kingdom on the continent barehanded. He asks if Ordal is a knight of the kingdom, but Ordal says he's not interested in protecting the king's life. He's here for a certain goal. Galahad's eyes light up. He reveals that his own goal in becoming an instructor and guarding this place was to meet the person known as the War Demon. Galahad explains that he heard the War Demon died a year ago, but it bothered him. He went to the grave and found the skeleton matched, but he still had doubts. For a year, he searched for any trace of the battle junkie, certain he would have shown up on a battlefield if he were alive. Ordal walks past Galahad, who allows him to pass unharmed, seemingly keeping his promise. He finds it odd that his title isn't just for show and that there's no bloodlust from him. Just as they're about to leave, Galahad speaks, saying he never asked for the masked stranger's name. Ordal replies that he is Lordo. Galahad repeats the name. Suddenly, he attacks, Ordal pushes Elizabeth out of the way just in time. He dodges the swift strike. Galahad comments on the excellent dodge. Ordal asks why he attacked after promising to let them pass. Galahad says he did intend to, but his intuition told him to kill him. He points his sword at Ordal, declaring that even with a changed appearance, he can tell that Ordal is the war demon. He licks his sword, savoring the moment he's finally met his rival. Ordal asks how he could slash at someone based on intuition alone. Galahad simply replies that if he was wrong, Ordal would have dodged, and if he was right, then only one man would have died. Ordal realizes Galahad is crazy, but Galahad credits Ordal as the one who taught him the importance of intuition. He also mentions that information from a witch aided his intuition. Ordal scoffs at the idea of a sword saint dancing to an unknown woman's tune. Galahad retorts that to meet Ordal, he would even sell his soul to her. Elizabeth calls him shameless. Galahad tells Elizabeth to move aside, but she refuses, stepping in front of Ordal to protect him. Galahad warns her that she would be dead 3 times over if he wanted her to be. Elizabeth tearfully admits she knows she's not strong enough to be his daughter, but someday she will be the only woman to stand by his side. She proudly introduces herself as Elizabeth, the eldest daughter of the Ordal household. She charges at Galahad, who is impressed by her speed and her good attack. Ordal picks up a fallen soldier's sword, knowing he's at a disadvantage with the poor-quality weapon, but also aware that on a battlefield, you don't always get to choose your weapon. Galahad, seeing Ordal finally motivated to fight, grins, eager to taste the war demon's blood once again. The battle begins as Galahad lunges, screaming for Ordal to die. Ordal grunts, parrying the powerful blow as sparks fly from their clashing swords. Ordal clicks his tongue in annoyance, his sword having been shattered by the force. Galahad remarks that it was a serious attack, and that it was expected of the war demon to be able to deflect it. He adds that Ordal's compliments mean nothing to him. Ordal assesses the situation, realizing Galahad was faster than he anticipated, preventing a clean deflection. He concedes that Galahad is superior in speed and technique, making a victory without injury difficult, though Ordal knows his own reaction time is better. Galahad taunts him, asking where his beloved sword is, and stating that Ordal can't possibly win with such a dull blade. Ordal calmly replies that his famous sword is just a lump of metal he no longer needs, so he left it in the capital. Galahad looks disappointed, sadly remarking that Ordal has changed far too much. His disappointment turns to rage as he recounts how he looked up to the war demon, polishing his own skills to earn the title of swordmaster just to stand on the same level. He furiously demands to know where the fighting spirit of the man once considered a god of war has gone. Ordal admits Galahad might be right. He's grown rusty this past year compared to when he was constantly dicing with death. Galahad declares Ordal has become even weaker than before. And yet, Galahad had always believed Ordal was the only one who could satisfy his hunger for a true battle. Ordal just chuckles, asking if Galahad is disappointed. He finds it unfortunate but amusing that the sword saint still craves battle, asking if they aren't both the same in that regard. Galahad remembers the war demon shining brighter than anyone on the battlefield. Ordal explains that as a mercenary, he lived only to cut others down, believing the battlefield was his only home. But now he's different. He's found something else. He reminisces about becoming a father, how lost he felt at first, and how he once thought his new life was boring. But living with Maria, he came to understand that being a dad brought trials greater than any war. His days are now filled with ups, downs, and fun. He has found a place other than the battlefield. Galahad dismisses his words as unfortunate and says it's time to end this, his disappointment clear. As he prepares to strike, Elizabeth watches in fear. Ordal knows his current sword will break if he tries to deflect another serious blow. He contemplates a lethal preemptive strike but hesitates, unsure if he can hold back. He tells Elizabeth to run, but she cries out, knowing the danger Galahad represents. Ordal's mind races. Should he kill Galahad? He quickly dismisses the thought, knowing it would make Maria sad. Protecting the academy by killing someone wouldn't bring her happiness. In that moment, he finds his answer. "Let's go, Galahad," he says, a renewed fire in his eyes, promising to show him the true power of the war demon. Galahad is thrilled, shouting that this is what he's been waiting for. He implores Ordal to take everything from him, to be the ultimate existence. Both warriors roar as they charge at each other. In a shocking move, Ordal allows Galahad's sword to pierce his shoulder. Galahad is stunned, unable to drive the blade further. Ordal explains it's a mercenary's tactic, sacrifice flesh to break bone. Galahad realizes he's been outplayed. He concedes with a chuckle, promising to get his revenge next time. Ordal agrees their next match might be interesting. Galahad departs, saying he'll look forward to it. Elizabeth rushes to Ordal's side, worried about his arm. He assures her it's fine and says they need to go talk to the king. Elizabeth asks how he plans to convince the king. Ordal just tells her to watch. He approaches the king's chambers. His plan is simple, to use spiritual martial arts, his signature move being goodwill persuasion. He then kicks the door in. The king and his guards are startled by the sudden intrusion. The shaken king, after a moment, declares that they are all going back to the capital. An attendant looks utterly confused. The king shouts his orders with finality, telling everyone to hurry. From a cliff, Ordal and Elizabeth watch the royal procession leave. The carriage driver seems bewildered by the abrupt change of plans. As dawn breaks, Elizabeth asks if they should head home too, and Ordal agrees. A few days later, Ordal is back home, flexing his healed arm. Maria greets him good morning. Elizabeth remarks that his fight with Galahad was evenly matched. Ordal claims he only won due to luck, Maria's blessing, and Galahad being slightly handicapped. He admits Galahad is an interesting swordsman he'd like to fight again, despite his personality flaws. Elizabeth is relieved, noting there's no evidence they were involved, and the king's return should prevent further problems, all thanks to Ordal's goodwill persuasion. Elizabeth ponders the term, wondering if it's some form of brainwashing, though she finds the idea disgraceful. Officially, the king's visit was cancelled due to poor health. A flashback reveals Ordal confronting the king in his room, asking for a moment to talk, much to the monarch's terror. Back in the present, Maria runs up with a stack of books. She enthusiastically explains she has a graduation exam next month and needs Elizabeth's help to study. Elizabeth agrees, and Ordal reassures Maria that she'll do fine. When he asks if she likes studying, she beams and says she loves it. Ordal reflects on how passionate Maria is, finding joy in learning and tackling everything with immense energy. Just then, Lily arrives and asks if Maria is about to study. Maria happily greets Lily. Lily promises to bake delicious bread for Maria as a reward for studying hard. Ordal knows Lily, who works at a bakery, is always practicing at home and has improved immensely. This gives him an idea, a bread bonanza for the afternoon. Lily happily asks if he'll try some, and he says of course. Fen the wolf wags his tail excitedly, prompting Ordal to joke that he's only sharp when it comes to food. Ordal claps his hands and assigns tasks. Maria and Elizabeth will study, Lily will bake, and he and Fen will work in the garden, reminding them that those who don't work don't eat. Fen barks in agreement, and Ordal declares they'll all meet at the dining table when they are done. The whole family shares a happy moment together. Ordal smiles, content. He thinks to himself that he's truly glad he was able to protect their home from the king. The day of the graduation ceremony finally arrived. Maria had safely passed her final exam. As they stood outside, Elizabeth noticed Maria seemed tense. Ordal asked if she was nervous, and Maria admitted she was a little because of the speech she had to give. Hearing this, Ordal told Maria he would teach her a good luck charm. He instructed her to first draw an X on her hand 3 times, then take that hand and swallow it. Maria followed his instructions, looking puzzled. Ordal then explained that all the stress she was feeling had just disappeared into her stomach. To her surprise, Maria felt better and exclaimed that he was right. She asked him why it worked, but Ordal sheepishly admitted he wasn't sure either. He just smiled and said that even if he doesn't understand the reason, it's a good luck charm because it's effective. Maria seemed to accept this simple logic. Elizabeth chuckled at the sight, finding it interesting, and told Maria she was looking forward to her speech. Inside the hall, the graduating students began to enter. Ordal felt a lump in his throat, fighting back tears. He told himself he couldn't cry, that it was his duty as a dad to watch over her until the very end. An announcer then called for Maria, the representative of the graduating students, to come forward. Maria took a deep breath and walked towards the stage. She began her speech by reflecting on the year that had passed since she first entered the academy. At first, she said, it was a series of stressful and surprising things, but she was able to make wonderful friends, and every day was so much fun. Elizabeth watched proudly, thinking about how hard Maria had worked, never becoming discouraged by the discrimination she faced, and always giving it her all. Maria concluded this part of her speech by saying that studying at the academy had left her with the best memories. She then thanked her older sisters and her dad for their unwavering support. Elizabeth was touched, thinking what a good girl Maria was, while Fen let out a soft whine. Maria finished her speech by saying she hoped to continue learning a lot more in the future. Ordal watched, his heart swelling with pride as he whispered her name. After the ceremony, Maria told Elizabeth she was really glad she had enrolled in the academy. Just then, Richmond appeared, congratulating Ordal. He asked what their plans were now, and Ordal explained they would be moving back to their hometown. Richmond said he figured as much and would be lonely. He promised to swing by Ruta again, but Ordal cheekily reminded him that he'd said that before and then didn't visit for almost 10 years. Elizabeth asked if her friends could help with the move, and Ordal readily agreed. Thrilled, she ran off to tell them, exclaiming that their move would be a lively event. Later, as they were packing, Ordal checked if Elizabeth had everything. She confirmed she was all good, having bought some new clothes, decorations, and books for the children back in the village. Ordal noticed Lily struggling with a large backpack and offered to help, but Lily insisted on carrying her own things as much as she could. Ordal praised her attitude, and seeing her enthusiasm, promised to build her a bread oven when they returned to the village. Elizabeth then turned to Maria, asking if she was okay with walking. Maria told her papa that she had really enjoyed living in the house with everyone. She added that she was looking forward to visiting Ruta again in the future. As they were about to leave the city, their path was blocked. It was Claudia, along with Maria's other classmates, who had come to see them off. Claudia tearfully asked Maria to meet again somewhere, and Maria happily agreed, declaring they would be friends forever. As the two girls hugged, Ordal reflected that it was unlikely they would meet again due to their different social classes, but that one could never predict what fate had in store. Richmond pulled Ordal aside for a final word. He handed Ordal a letter of recommendation, explaining it would allow Maria to enter one of the kingdom's top-rank academies in the capital. He admitted Ordal might not use it, but he wanted him to have it just in case. Ordal accepted, saying he would think about it for Maria's future, and sincerely thanked his friend. Richmond smiled, saying he knew Ordal would understand, and also thanked him for taking care of Maria. Ordal called out to his family, and they prepared to depart. Maria's friends waved energetically, wishing her well and promising to meet again for sure. As their journey began, Maria waved back, shouting that she would see them all again. Ordal looked back at the city, reflecting on everything that had happened. The kidnapping incident, the difficult entrance exam, the bullying, and the formation of his new family. His thoughts drifted to Galahad's mysterious sword, and the witch who seemed to be pulling the strings. As Elizabeth pointed toward the northern road, Ordal decided to leave the investigation to Richmond, knowing this witch was no ordinary foe. Maria, full of excitement, told her papa she couldn't wait to get back to the village. Ordal teased her, saying everyone would be surprised at how much she'd grown. Elizabeth chimed in, joking that since Maria had studied material for 12-year-olds, she was now officially a 12-year-old big sister. She then playfully added that this meant Maria would have to eat her vegetables. Maria groaned in protest as Ordal noted Lily's strictness when it came to food. Meanwhile, back at the academy, Richmond was deep in thought in his study. He wondered if the witch had the ability to monitor Ordal, or perhaps even see the future. Consulting his books, he found references to an ancient, god-like power that was different from spiritual martial arts. He was certain the king wouldn't have targeted Ruta on his own, and concluded that the witch must have influenced him. Frustrated, he decided he needed to go to the capital to find proof. For now, however, he resolved to research the witch a bit more before taking a break. Just then he heard a faint noise. Wondering if it was a rat or a burglar, he grabbed a staff and cautiously headed into the reference room. He chided himself for being on edge, blaming it on his research. He moved to a bookshelf to check the records of the students who had graduated that year. He looked for Maria's file, but something was wrong. It wasn't there. Her record was missing. Richmond sensed a presence he couldn't see. Realizing what was happening, he frantically tossed books off the shelf, exposing an empty, shimmering space where the file should have been. A woman materialized from the shadows. She commented that he must have the old blood in him to have noticed her technique. Richmond found himself paralyzed, unable to move. He identified her as the witch, a title she found interesting but fitting. Richmond accused her of manipulating Galahad and controlling the king. He demanded to know her goal and why she was so fixated on Ordal. His final, most pressing question was why she had erased Maria's record. The witch, uninterested, simply uttered "begone" and unleashed a magical attack. Richmond saw the ancient language of a spell envelop him and lamented his uselessness to Ordal. But just as the attack was about to hit, A sword flashed, deflecting it by a hair's breadth. Galahad stood between them, having arrived just in the nick of time, much to Richmond's astonishment. Galahad, the legendary sword saint, makes a sudden entrance, leaving Richmond absolutely baffled as to why he is there. Galahad confirms his identity with a smirk, but there is no time for pleasantries. He quickly scoops up the confused Richmond and leaps away, warning him that they need to distance themselves from the witch immediately. After a rather rough landing that leaves Richmond complaining about the lack of gentleness, they observe the quiet hallway. Richmond realizes that despite the commotion, no guards are coming, likely due to the witch's strange magic keeping people away. Galahad explains that handing over Richmond would have been easier, but he finds the witch's methods far too roundabout. He mentions how she even manipulated the king and Ordal to fight, leading Richmond to realize her true goal was always something hidden within the academy. Galahad smiles, noting that Richmond arrived at the same conclusion he did. Apparently, Galahad had been watching over the place ever since he recovered from the wound Ordal gave him. Richmond is skeptical that someone would set up a stakeout based on a mere hypothesis, but Galahad simply says he trusted his intuition. The self-proclaimed witch mocks him for relying on such things, but Galahad retorts that he still has much to learn from the strong. He lunges forward with his blade, but the witch blocks him with a spiritual martial art wall. Looking down on him as part of an inferior species, she unleashes a barrage of dark magic arrows, declaring that she no longer needs him as a pawn. Seeing Galahad in trouble, Richmond remembers he isn't strong like Ordal but knows his history. He pulls out a family heirloom, hoping his ancestors were right about its power. Richmond thrusts the jewel forward, causing it to glow and shock the witch, who recognizes it as an ancient magic destruction jewel. Seizing the opening, Galahad delivers a powerful strike that forces the witch to retreat, though she leaves behind a cliched villainous threat. With the battle over, Richmond sighs in relief. Galahad sits and speculates that the witch won't be able to use large spells for a while. He finds Richmond quite interesting, especially when Richmond predicts that Ordal and his family will eventually head to the capital. Richmond is certain that Maria's ambition and Ordal's bold personality will lead them to the metropolis. Galahad laughs, thinking that sounds just like the man he wants to fight again. Richmond calculates they will move within 3 months. Since they are both targets of the witch, Galahad suggests they team up and travel to some ancient ruins in the southern region. Richmond wonders what is in it for him, and Galahad mentions there are savage magic beasts for practice. Galahad realizes he needs better training than normal practice to defeat Ordal, while Richmond notes he has free time now that the graduation ceremony is over. Even though Galahad is technically still aiming for Ordal's life, Richmond is fine with it. They decide to head out that very evening, both excited for different reasons. While they prepare, Ordal is elsewhere, probably sneezing because someone is talking about him. Deep in some ruins, Elizabeth and the white wolf Fen are busy fighting a massive great red tiger. They take it down with expert teamwork, and Ordal praises them both for a job well done. He warns them that some beasts are incredibly tenacious, and they must stay sharp. Ordal thinks to himself that while they are skilled, they still have a lot to learn through practice. Fen looks around and notes there is no treasure this time either, only a ton of books. Ancient writings are common in these ruins, but Elizabeth is disappointed because she was hoping for something more valuable. Most people avoid these places because of the danger and lack of monetary reward, which leaves the texts for those who actually care about history. Ordal plans to donate the books to Richmond and load the tiger onto his cart. He wonders what to do with the magic core, and Elizabeth suggests letting Fen eat it since she isn't interested. Fen doesn't hesitate and gulps down the large core in one go. The energy causes Fen to grow a bit larger, though Ordal hopes they can still pass her off as a regular dog. Back at the village, Ordal delegates the dismantling of the magic beasts to the locals. The village is bustling and full of life. Ordal notices Maria and Lily are busy cooking dinner and thinks they are doing well. He sits down for a drink with the village chief, who comments on how peaceful things are. The chief credits the hard work of the local youths who have been protecting and cultivating the land. He thanks Ordal for his role in their growth, though Ordal jokingly tells him he won't get anything for the praise. Ordal feels relieved that he can finally trust the village's safety to the next generation. The chief notes that more people are moving to the village lately. While more people mean more potential problems, it also means a more stable and safe community for everyone. He praises Ordal's leadership for making the village a place that welcomes strangers. The chief then gets serious, telling Ordal that if he has something else he needs to do, he doesn't need to worry about the village anymore. Ordal is a bit surprised by the sudden talk. The chief points out that Maria has a gift that is being wasted out in the sticks, and tells Ordal to think about her future. While Ordal was away, a former city teacher took over the local classes. However, Maria is already studying on her own, using specialized books that are far beyond the level of what the village teacher can provide. Her ability to absorb information is so impressive it would shock a scholar. Ordal realizes it might be time to enroll her in a higher-level academy. The most advanced schools are all located in the royal capital. Ordal worries that moving the whole family carries a lot of risks. He notices Maria being considerate of him, not wanting to say she wants to go so she doesn't burden him. He admits to himself that trying to shoulder everything alone is a bad habit of his. He decides to talk to the entire family and promises to give up the idea if even one person is against it. He gathers everyone and tells them he is considering moving to the capital. He asks for their honest opinions, warning them that the capital has its own set of problems. Lily immediately says she has no problem with it. She is even willing to risk being found by the church because Maria's studies are more important. Elizabeth is already getting ready to pack, reminding them that the Raymond family has a house in the capital anyway. She is fired up about the family joining forces for Maria's future. Ordal is impressed by her rushing forward, but Elizabeth asks if he will be okay since he has enemies in the capital. Ordal declares that the king is nothing compared to Maria's future. He vows to do something about the entire kingdom if he has to. Fen agrees to go as long as there is delicious food, and because she wants to protect Maria. With the decision made, Ordal goes to Maria's room. He asks her if she would like to go to a top-ranking academy. Her eyes light up with pure joy as she says yes. Maria admits she really wanted to go because she wants to learn more. Ordal apologizes for making her wait and tells her to get ready to move. Maria jumps into his arms, thanking him happily. Seeing her this happy makes Ordal regret not deciding sooner. He looks out at the trees, confident that he will figure out how to handle the capital. The old king sits in despair, clutching his head. He laments that it's all because he went back there, ever since the day he counted his money. The scene flashes back 3 months earlier to a castle on the outskirts of Ruda. The same man, looking much healthier and greedier, laughs maniacally. Surrounded by piles of gold, he declares his excitement for tomorrow, cackling to himself about all his money. He awakens with a start in his ornate chair, wondering if he had fallen asleep. He decides he needs to call somebody to settle the plans for tomorrow, but as he tries to speak, no sound comes out. His mouth moves, but he's met with silence. A wave of panic washes over him as he realizes his voice won't come out. Later, looking frantic, the king bellows at his knights that everyone is to return to the capital immediately. One of his men asks what they will do about the city and the academy, but the king is lost in his own terror. He tries to say the city's name, Ru, but the word catches in his throat. He can't say it. He doesn't understand why. Convinced that this is all too weird, he screams that he has to get away from here, ordering everyone to hurry back to the capital. He finds no peace, even in his dreams. He screams that he doesn't want anything to do with that city. Waking up in a cold sweat, he clutches his sheets, yelling that he's sick of these nightmares. He desperately calls for an exorcist, a doctor, and even a fortune teller to rid him of his torment. A medium from the church approaches the king, addressing him as Your Majesty and stating she has information for him. She reveals that the figure of salvation can be seen coming from the north. The king, wild-eyed with a mix of desperation and hope, asks if his savior is truly from the north. The medium describes a reliable savior accompanied by a strong female warrior, a young girl on a pilgrimage, a silver divine beast, a divine horse, and a small sage. The scene shifts to Ordal's party arriving at a bustling city. Ordal notes that they've safely entered the capital. Maria is utterly amazed by the sheer scale of it all, pointing out the castle and the many carriages to her father. Lily looks around, also taking in the sights for the first time in this manner, confirming that this is indeed the capital. Lily breathes in the air, recognizing the smell of the city. It's a nostalgic scent that used to drift through the small window of her room at the temple. Elizabeth, now in her knight's armor, observes that the capital is as busy as ever. For Lily, who was shut away there, the capital is like a second home. Elizabeth reflects that she also considers the capital a second home, having visited often as a duke's daughter and stayed for long periods as a knight. Though Ruda was nice, she admits she prefers the capital's liveliness. Elizabeth seems a little annoyed, however. She tells Ordal that the guards at the north gate didn't even recognize her, despite her importance. Ordal calmly points out that ordinary soldiers wouldn't know the face of a duke's daughter. He holds up some documents, explaining that they got in thanks to the kingdom citizenship papers that Richmond prepared for them. He confirms with Richmond that these are the papers with him as the guarantor, setting aside the recommendation letter for now. Ordal thanks Richmond, who explains that the papers will make it easier to enroll Maria in school. Richmond also reminds Ordal that he needs to hide his identity, especially here. Ordal is confident no one will recognize him easily, but Richmond notes that there are even papers for his family. Turning to Elizabeth, Ordal mentions that the atmosphere around her has changed so much that he doubts anyone would recognize her either, leaving her confused. Elizabeth asks if he plans to buy another mansion. Ordal says no, not this time. The journey was long, and their first priority is securing a place to sleep. He explains that buying a mansion in the capital, where so many people know him, is a foolish idea that could get them discovered. Instead, they'll look for a long-term house rental, and he already has a lead. They arrive in a middle-class area of town, the most populated district. Ordal leads them to a small, unassuming building, announcing they are here. Maria reads the sign, questioning if it's Dazzle's shop. As they prepare to go in, Elizabeth remarks that it doesn't stand out much for a store, while Maria jokes that it looks haunted. Ordal reassures them that the owner is well known to the right people and can be trusted. Maria peeks inside the quiet shop, asking if anyone is there. The group enters the empty establishment, wondering if the owner is out. Ordal calls out, stating that he's looking for a place to stay, hopefully starting today. Suddenly, a tough-looking, bald old man appears. He remarks that Ordal finally showed his face and looks as healthy as ever. He is Dazzle. As he gets a better look, his demeanor changes to one of shock, recognizing Ordal's eyes and voice. "It can't be Ordal!" Dazzle shouts in disbelief. Ordal calmly confirms his identity. Dazzle is stunned, protesting that Ordal was supposed to have died in a fire a year ago. He points out that Ordal looks completely different now. Ordal simply explains there were various circumstances surrounding the fire and assures him that he is not a spirit. Dazzle accepts the explanation, admitting he always found the burnt corpse suspicious. He acknowledges that Ordal must have had his struggles. He then grabs Ordal, demanding to know where he's been for the past year, as there was no news of him anywhere. Dazzle leaps to a wild conclusion, asking if Ordal is here to take over the country. Ordal flatly denies it, saying he's not so narrow-minded as to seek revenge for an assassination attempt, and that he actually dislikes battle. Ordal clarifies that after leaving the capital, he lived quietly in his hometown. The reason he returned, he explains, is to enroll his daughter in school. Dazzle, flustered, says that it's not a coup, then offers his help if Ordal ever changes his mind. But then the word daughter registers and he freezes, shouting in surprise. Dazzle quickly composes himself, understanding the situation now. He says he has one property that fits Ordal's needs. Ordal questions the suspiciously quick reply. Dazzle explains it's a private house just behind his shop and that he's the landlord. It even has a place for the horse nearby, making it a perfect fit, and they can start renting today. Ordal immediately agrees, saying he trusts Dazzle. Dazzle finds it strange that he'd take it without even looking inside, but Ordal is certain Dazzle would have considered his needs. Chuckling that Ordal is as strange as ever, Dazzle gets the keys to show them the place, ignoring Ordal's retort. As they walk, Ordal observes that they are far from the upper-class areas and that the nearby market will make life convenient. It seems his family will be able to live peacefully here. Dazzle leads them to the house. He explains the previous tenants left their furniture behind, which they are welcome to use, and invites them in. Maria and Fen rush inside excitedly. Ordal agrees it's a nice place. Elizabeth is pleased to find a kitchen with a water supply, and Ordal notes the quiet side street will be good for Maria's studies. Elizabeth declares it's perfect for their group. Ordal announces that now the real work of unpacking, cleaning, and shopping begins. Lily offers to handle the cleaning, while Elizabeth eagerly takes on the physical labor and shopping. Maria chimes in that she'll do her best, with Fen barking in agreement. Watching them, Dazzle remarks on how peaceful it all is. Ordal agrees, content that they've found a place to stay. He tells Dazzle that his next step is to go to the academy tomorrow to enroll Maria. Ordal points towards a massive gate, explaining their plan to first take care of the procedures there and then head into the upper-class part of town. Lily is surprised, asking if there's another castle wall within the city. Ordal confirms this, adding that it's not easy for normal citizens to get to the other side. The capital, Lily observes, is built in layers, with each section further in being more secure than the last. While the middle and lower classes inhabit the outer areas, the upper class section begins behind the second wall. She realizes the prestigious academy is located there, and worries about how difficult it will be for Maria to get there. Ordal reassures her that it's fine, producing a document Dazzle prepared for them that will grant them passage. Relieved, Lily exclaims that's good news. Ordal scoffs internally, thinking that this permit system is just a scheme by the money-obsessed king to regulate citizens and collect more taxes. Maria's eyes light up when she learns that once she's enrolled, there will be carriages available to take her to the academy. As they walk, Ordal spots a familiar face in the crowd. He notes that the capital is a big place, and he's not surprised to see someone he knows. With the permit in hand, Ordal feels more confident about living in the capital, knowing he can move freely through the upper-class districts without needing to hide his face. They soon arrive at a magnificent, sprawling building. Ordal announces that this is the upper-level academy. Maria is completely in awe, exclaiming how huge and amazing it is. Ordal mentions that this academy is considered one of the top 2 on the entire continent and suggests they head to the office to apply. Maria eagerly agrees, promising to do her very best. Inside, an administrator looks at their documents in shock. She is stunned that they have a letter of introduction from Richmond, the vice principal of the Rudu Academy, and then looks up to find the applicant, Maria, who is nervously glancing around. Maria tells her father she's ready to take the test. Ordal smiles, encouraging her to just have fun with it as she always does. She beams back, saying she will. Meanwhile, back at their new home, Elizabeth wonders how Maria's exam is going. Lily, full of confidence, says Maria is incredibly smart and will be fine. Elizabeth jokes that it won't be long before Maria is even smarter than Fen. Later, Maria bursts through the door, announcing that they are home. The group warmly welcomes them back. Lily immediately asks how the exam went. With a triumphant tada, Maria proudly displays her test paper, revealing a perfect score. Everyone is astounded. Elizabeth says it's just as she expected from Maria, and Fen barks his approval. Maria adds that her score means she'll be able to study as a scholarship student. Ordal asks when the entrance ceremony is, but Maria explains that there isn't one. As soon as her uniform is ready, she can start her lessons. Unlike the academy in Ruda, these upper-level institutions focus solely on the pursuit of knowledge, with almost no school events. Lily thinks it's a little sad, but understands that's how these places are. Ordal reflects that while he would have loved to see Maria shine at another sports festival, this academy is the perfect place for a girl who loves learning. He's sure her cheerful nature will help her make friends, even without school events. Lily, who had been confident all along, tells Maria she prepared a celebratory feast for her. Maria is thrilled. Just then, Elizabeth returns with some high-quality meat, and the whole group, especially Maria and Fen, cheers in anticipation of the meal. A few days later, Maria tries on her new school uniform. Lily tells her it's perfect, and Maria thanks her. Ordal announces he will act as her guide for her first day, and Elizabeth says she'll take care of the house. As they head out, Elizabeth waves them off, telling them to be careful. On the way, Ordal considers checking the academy for any potential dangers. He watches from a distance as Maria interacts happily with her new classmates, just as she did in Ruda. He's already investigated the area and thinks it's safe. He concludes that being a scholarship student was a good move. Deciding it's time for Maria to gain some independence, he plans to just keep an eye on her for a few days, with Fen acting as her guard. Later, Ordal discusses his plans with Dazzle. He explains that he needs to find a job to maintain his appearance as a father, and not embarrass his daughter. He mentions that he has a considerable fortune from the materials he gathered hunting magic beasts over the last 3 months, enough to buy a castle if he sold it all. Dazzle chuckles, remarking that even the great war demon Ordal has changed. It's amusing that he has so much money but still wants to work for his daughter's sake. Ordal simply agrees that it's true. Dazzle asks what kind of job he's looking for. Ordal says that since he and Elizabeth know many people in the capital, a high-profile job would be problematic. For his own safety, he needs a job that allows him to move around freely, just in case someone recognizes him despite his changed appearance. Elizabeth adds that she's looking for the same thing, a job with flexible hours and locations. Dazzle declares he has the perfect job for them. With a flourish, Dazzle offers them jobs at his store. Ordal is taken aback, admitting he never considered that option. Elizabeth says she's fine with the idea, but asks what kind of store it actually is. Ordal explains that Dazzle's place is where people bring their problems to be solved. Elizabeth simplifies it, calling it a general store. Ordal elaborates that it's a unique establishment, well known in the capital's underground. Dazzle takes on requests and connects clients with skilled individuals who can handle them. A business only someone with his connections could run. Dazzle assures them he only accepts clean requests, and knowing how capable Ordal is, thinks they'd be a perfect fit. Besides, he's been so busy lately that he was planning to hire help anyway, partly so he could have more time to visit his grandchild. Dazzle then turns to Elizabeth, suggesting she help out at the front of the store. She seems a bit flustered, but agrees. She says she can certainly handle that. Ordal thinks it's a great idea, noting that her friendly and pleasant appearance is much better suited for customer service than his own intimidating presence. Lily agrees, thinking that Elizabeth will be a great help to Dazzle. Elizabeth, determined, promises to do her best. Dazzle is delighted, saying he'll be counting on them from now on. He's excited to finally have time to visit his grandchild. Ordal fondly remembers how cute the baby was and says he'd like to bring Maria and the others for a visit. Elizabeth smiles at the thought of working the same job as Ordal. She turns to him and says that it sounds like it's going to be fun. It's been a few days since Ordal started working at Dazzle's shop, and the days have actually been going by quite nicely. He recently returned with a lost cat, which absolutely floored Dazzle because of how incredibly fast he managed to track the feline down. To a man like Ordal, finding a missing pet was a simple task, and he learned that Dazzle gets plenty of these routine requests from the people of the capital. Dazzle is a man of principle, though, as he refuses any illegal jobs that go against his moral code. Elizabeth pops into the shop with a new request, as Ordal reflects on how he wants this job to be something he can be proud of as Maria's father. Speaking of Maria, she is having the time of her life. Every morning she hops onto a carriage to head to the academy and comes home eager to chat about everything she learned. Ordal has left the task of guarding his daughter entirely up to the white wolf Fen, who has been doing the job perfectly. Thanks to that, the whole family has grown much more dependable since their time in Ruda, allowing Ordal to spend his time in the capital however he likes. As he walks through the city, his thoughts drift to his former life and the mansion he once called home. He recalls the image of his mansion engulfed in flames and wonders what exactly happened to the site of his old life. After making sure the perimeter of the area is clear of any prying eyes, he approaches the tall iron gates of the estate and stops in surprise. The ground in front of the locked gates is covered in a beautiful arrangement of flowers. Ordal is genuinely baffled and wonders who in the world would bother leaving flowers at a place like this. An elderly woman nearby sees him and asks if he is also there to leave a flower offering. She explains that to the common citizens, Ordal Sama was a true hero whose work lessened the constant fighting and improved their lives significantly. He remembers how his series of victories for the kingdom once brought in wealth from other countries and allowed the capital to flourish. A peace treaty was even signed a year ago, stabilizing life for everyone. However, the woman sadly notes that since Ordal supposedly died in the fire, the kingdom has been off ever since, and fighting with nearby countries has started up again. She complains that the current king is a deeply greedy person, and the general public is feeling the heavy burden of his poor leadership. Ordal realizes that things are only going to get worse for the people, unless something extreme happens to change the status quo. The woman tells him that the citizens offer flowers and pray to Ordal's memory for help, and he thanks her for sharing such an honest perspective. He finds it hard to believe that he turned into such a legendary figure after his fake death, especially since he felt he was just a man who spent his life fighting on the battlefield. It's clear to him now that the current monarchy is on a direct road to failure. That greedy king is clearly running wild with his selfish desires, much like the taxation mess that happened at the academy. Ordal grits his teeth in frustration, but ultimately decides that the current him shouldn't have anything to do with the kingdom's political troubles. He turns back to the iron gates and decides it is finally time to head inside and investigate. After a quick look around the quiet street to make sure he isn't being followed, he nimbly leaps over the top of the gate and slips into the ruins. He finds it ironic that he has to sneak into his own mansion, and he recalls Dazzle saying the site had been preserved after the fire. Looking at the wreckage, he realizes the place was searched very thoroughly, and there's no way this was a natural fire. It was almost certainly the work of the Black Sheep Knights trying to make a murder look like an accident. He spots a path that seems to be partially blocked by rubble and wonders if he should seal it off. He decides to block the way completely, figuring it is about time to finish up and head back home. He reasons that if he blocks the point where the paths meet, nobody will be able to enter the tunnel that leads into the capital's sewers, effectively destroying any remaining evidence. Just as he's finishing up to make extra sure everything is secure, his sharp senses pick up a faint sound in the dark tunnel. He stops in his tracks and wonders if there is actually another person hiding down there. Suddenly, sharp slashes of energy erupt from the darkness, and he stands his ground as he's attacked. Ordal lets out a shout and counters the assault with a powerful blast of his own energy that illuminates the tunnel. He notes that those slashes actually had a decent amount of power behind them as he looks at his hand. With a stern expression, he demands to know who is hiding in the shadows. A voice cries out in absolute terror, begging him not to come any closer. Ordal is taken aback to realize he is hearing the trembling voice of a child. He moves toward the source of the noise despite the pleas, and a look of pure shock washes over his face as he sees who is there. Standing before him is a young girl with long, dark hair, tears streaming down her face as she cowers in fear. Ordal is speechless because the girl looks exactly like a dark-haired version of Maria. The young girl lashes out in desperation, screaming for the stranger to go away as she uses her incredibly long hair like a whip to strike at him. Ordal is stunned to realize that the sharp slashes were coming directly from her hair, and he clenches his fist, realizing the raw power she possesses. Trembling, the girl mutters that she is terrified, but her strength quickly fails her as her breathing becomes ragged. Ordal notices she has likely exhausted herself by letting loose too many of those dangerous hair slashes. He tells her to relax and promises that he is not her enemy, hoping to calm her frantic heart. Kneeling to her level, he explains that he has a daughter just about her age and introduces himself simply as a normal dad named Ordal. The girl's eyes widen in confusion as she repeats the word daughter back to him. Ordal suggests they get out of the damp tunnel and promises to find her some warm food. He looks around the pitch-black, unsanitary sewer, wondering how on earth she ended up in such a miserable place. Suddenly, the girl collapses from pure exhaustion, and Ordal catches her before she hits the cold ground. As he lifts her up, he is horrified by how light she is, noting that she is painfully thin and probably weighs only half of what Maria does. He decides right then that his first priority is getting some nutrients into her. When he finally arrives home, Elizabeth is waiting on the balcony and welcomes him back, though she notes that he is quite late. Her jaw nearly hits the floor when she sees the unconscious child in his arms, and she frantically asks who on earth the girl is. Elizabeth even teases him for a second, wondering if he was out lurking in the shadows again, but Ordal shuts that down immediately. He tells them they need to treat the girl first, and that he will explain the whole situation once she's safe. Elizabeth quickly agrees and offers to fetch some warm water. Looking at the girl's pale face, Elizabeth sighs that the poor thing seems awfully thin. Maria and Lily come out to welcome Ordal home as well, but their smiles turn to looks of intense curiosity when they see the newcomer. Maria leans in close, realizing that despite the black hair, the girl looks remarkably like her. Elizabeth and Lily discuss the girl's unusual hair-slashing technique, with Elizabeth admitting she's never heard of anything like it in the kingdom. Lily adds that she can sense a very strange and powerful energy radiating from the child. Ordal tells everyone to step back so he can begin healing her, worrying that if they don't act fast, she might die from sheer emaciation. He admits he isn't the best at healing spiritual martial arts, but he has to try. Lily steps forward to assist, mentioning that she is quite knowledgeable about healing techniques. Ordal thanks her as she prepares to help him guide the flow of his energy through the girl's weakened body. Together, they channel their power into the child, and a soft glow envelops her as they mend the damage from her malnutrition. Elizabeth asks if she seems okay now, and Ordal confirms that she was just incredibly weakened, but is stable. The girl begins to stir, letting out a soft groan. Her eyes flutter open, and she looks around the unfamiliar ceiling, wondering where she could possibly be. Ordal leans over and gently explains that she is safe in his house. Maria excitedly brings over a bowl of soup, telling the girl to eat up while warning her to be careful because it's still very hot. The savory aroma of the food reaches the girl's nose, and her stomach practically growls in anticipation. She hesitates, looking at the spoon with suspicion, so Ordal takes a big bite himself to prove that there isn't any poison in it. He encourages her to just take one single bite. She gingerly takes a mouthful, and her entire expression shifts as the flavor hits her tongue. She shouts with pure joy that it's yummy, claiming it's the very first time in her life she's ever eaten something so delicious. Maria beams with pride, telling her that Lily's soup is always especially tasty. Ordal tells her to eat slowly because there is plenty more where that came from, and the girl happily keeps munching away. Later, the whole group gathers around the warm fireplace, and the girl finally looks comfortable. Once she's full, Ordal decides it's time to ask about her situation and how she ended up in the sewers. Elizabeth jumps in, asking for her name and what happened to her parents, though she quickly realizes she might be coming on a bit too strong with the questions. Ordal tells the girl not to look so gloomy, because the world is a massive place with room for many things. He tells her that as long as she is alive, things will eventually work out one way or another. He thinks back on the war that ravaged the continent and how many children were abandoned in poor rural areas just to lessen the number of mouths to feed. Ordal admits his own life isn't necessarily something to brag about, but as long as someone has the will to live, they can find a path forward. Elizabeth sighs and rubs her head, telling Ordal that he shouldn't say such complicated, heavy things to a little kid. The girl looks down and whispers that she manages as long as she has somewhere to go, but right now, she has nowhere. Ordal doesn't miss a beat and tells her to live with them, noting that they have plenty of extra rooms. Maria and Elizabeth think it's a brilliant idea and immediately start celebrating the new addition to the house. The girl is completely stunned, her mouth hanging open at the sudden offer. Ordal adds that once she gets better, she will have to work, explaining that the family motto is that he who doesn't work doesn't eat. She'll have to help with the cleaning and laundry. Elizabeth gets excited and asks if the girl can help her at the store since they are short on staff. He declares that from this day forward, she will be the youngest daughter of their family. He declares that from this day forward, she will be the youngest daughter of their family. He declares that from this day forward, she will be the youngest daughter of their family. He suggests the name Nyes, shortened from Nisteris, the name of a goddess known for her beautiful hair. The girl repeats the name Nyes to herself, wondering if that really belongs to her now. Everyone agrees it is a wonderful name, and Nyes looks genuinely touched by the kindness of these strangers. Maria grabs her hands and gives her a big smile, saying it's nice to meet her. Ordal starts giving out orders, telling Elizabeth to get Nyes washed up and asking Lily to find some of Maria's old clothes for her. Maria and Fen excitedly head off to get a room ready. Ordal watches them go and thinks about his growing family, while Nyes realizes she has finally found a place to belong.